It is Monday. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News. I'm Nick Sturtevant. In front of me, James. Carlene, how are you guys doing?
Hi.
Monday.
It's Monday.
Y'all don't have any energy for a Monday.
I said hi.
Okay. No,
Fine. Be that way.
Maybe
We're starting out great.
Maybe I came in hot a little bit. Maybe that's what it was. You know, I'm sorry, guys. They are excited to be here. We have a lot going on. Fresh off of a weekend packed with news, a day going into a Monday packed with news. I'm looking at some live feeds right now. We'll get to those in just a moment. But we want to get to the weather outside. We were weather alert, 3 days last week?
Storms and heat, man.
Yeah. And it's like, it's summer in the Carolinas, so it's kind of like rinse and repeat. So we have some hot weather. Mm-hmm. It's really hot out. I did take my stroll outside to the car and back.
How'd it feel?
It was pretty hot.
It's hot.
Cranked up the AC.
You can't see how hot it is in this live shot.
You can't. It actually looks like not that hot.
It's hot.
In this shot, uptown, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it looks
Except
like
for no one's in Ramar Bearden Park.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nobody down there.
At lunchtime at that.
Right.
All right. So it's hot outside. You know how the Carolina. Well, if you don't know, it's hot, storms. That's all within the bag of weather things that happens here in the Carolinas. But look, I'm not a meteorologist, so let's check in with meteorologist Majestic Storm for a look at the forecast. Let's take a listen in.
Well, good Monday afternoon. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. We're off to a beautiful start to our new week. Temperatures this afternoon are going to be hot again, and we're still watching for kind of that typical summertime weather pattern still. Some isolated thunderstorms and showers will be possible today and nearly every single day in my 7-day forecast. Near normal temperatures with daytime highs rising mainly into the low to mid 90s all week long. But remember, once you add in the humidity, it's going to feel just a little hotter than that. Flood risk, we'll be keeping an eye out for that because if any of those storms do develop, they could bring that brief heavy downpour that could lead to some fast flooding. Yesterday was a hot Sunday. We topped off at 97 degrees and today we're forecasting 94, so a little bit cooler, but bottom line, it's going to feel hot for just about everyone unless you're lucky enough to live up in the mountains. Look at this. A nice sunny day with the daytime highs rising mainly into the upper 70s and low 80s. 78 degrees today in Blowing Rock as we head towards the foothills. A little hotter with low 90s from Lenore out towards Hickory. Once we bring it back home out towards the Charlotte area, remember 94 for us, 94 for Gastonia as well as Shelby, 92 for your forecasted high today in Lincolnton. And then out there towards the Sandhills, we have 93 in Monroe and 94 in Rock Hill. Those are our actual air temperatures, but once you add in the humidity this afternoon, I told you it's going to feel even hotter. It's going to feel like we're back into the upper 90s, so make sure you do find a nice way to stay cool. If you are going to be out in the elements, make sure you're reapplying a lot of that sunblock today and staying extra hydrated. Overnight lows tonight only dropping down into mainly the low 70s. Cooler out there in Boone. It's going to feel nice at 63, but we're not getting a lot of that cooling overnight to allow for a lot of that relief. And you know what? We have still some major heat on the way. So far, we've seen 90-degree temperatures over the last 7 days, and as you can see, over the next 10 days, we have multiple heading our direction. A high of 94 to kick off our new work week. Temperatures slip down into the lower end of the 90s tomorrow, Wednesday, and then we start to climb back up. Look at Sunday, a high of 96 degrees again. But with that, each and every day we'll watch for a pop-up shower or thunderstorm starting today, and that'll continue even straight into the weekend. So make sure you're just paying close attention to the forecast, especially if you plan on being out on any body of water. Here's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Still a whole lot of sunshine for a lot of us, but that heat and humidity, you know how it goes. It provides fuel for possible storms. And notice the storms will be very isolated. If it impacts the Charlotte metro area, I think it'd be between about 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And with that, we could see that heavy downpour, some gusty winds, frequent lightning. May even see a pop-up thunderstorm throughout the overnight hours. That's early tomorrow morning. Heading out the door, though, tomorrow is going to be beautiful. We'll have plenty of sunshine. And then as we're heading later into our Tuesday afternoon and evening, we'll start to see some storms move in from the mountains mountain locations and then track southeast. In addition to that, though, big picture perspective, we're keeping our eyes on the tropics. This area of low pressure expected to form out there in the Gulf, and this could be our next named storm. The National Hurricane Center still has this area shaded in yellow as that next area of interest where we could see that storm form, mainly impacting the coast of Florida, even back towards Louisiana. Saying over the next 2 days, a 10% chance for that to actually form, but over the next 7 days, we could see a 30% chance for that next storm to form. 7-day forecast, though, back home, not looking too bad. Very summer-like each and every day, at least hitting 90 degrees. 94 is our high today, feeling like we're into the upper 90s this afternoon. About a 40% chance for showers and storms, especially this afternoon and evening as those clouds continue to spread across the area. Hope you have a great week ahead. Stay close to WCNC.
A 7-day with nothing but the 90s. Gotta love it. Welcome to the Carolinas if you're new here. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to Washington, D.C. This is a live look at President Donald Trump. So he's at a faith luncheon right now there at the White House. So moments ago, President Trump actually had a meeting with, let me make sure I had the name up. Okay, Mark Rutte, Secretary General with NATO. So basically, I'm going to read you just a snippet from NBC News' website. So Trump said the U.S. will send weapons to Ukraine through NATO, which will pay for and distribute them, and threaten secondary tariffs targeting Russia if a cease deal isn't reached. So again, this comes just moments after that meeting with the Secretary General with NATO. Let's listen in. Again, he is at a faith luncheon there in D.C. Let's take a listen in.
Here and welcome to the first ever White House Summit of Faith and Business Leaders. You're really some of the greatest business leaders in the country. When I looked at some of the names, I said, whoa, that's big stuff we have here today. In fact, before I was president, I would have been very intimidated, but now I'm president, so I don't have to be. But today we celebrate the core values that built this country: and freedom, hard work, risk-taking, and above all, trust in Almighty God. You're very much into God in this room. And that's very nice. You're business leaders who believe strongly. We have some business leaders that don't believe strongly, and somehow you and I don't like them as much. But I want to thank Pastor Paula White. She's been my friend for a long time. And John for convening this incredible group. You know, her husband's one of the most talented musicians in the world. Stand up, John. Stand up. Okay. I stole a couple of his songs for the rallies, and he never sued me, so I was very happy. But we all come from the same place, right? So it was great, and we appreciate it, John. Thanks as well to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's doing a fantastic job. He goes on television and he calms the market. I go on television, I rile the market, and I say, we better send him in there, Howard, right? And the market's become so calm and nice, so you're doing a good job, Scott. Thank you very much. You make any deals today? We got a lot of them, boy, I tell you, we have. But the best deal is just sending out the paper. You know, they keep saying, well, he hasn't made the deal. Oh, we made a number of deals, but why isn't he doing deals? Because the paper is better than any deal we can make. Do you understand? The people in this, Kevin, they asked you that question this morning. You were great this morning, but they said, well, when is he going to start making deals? The next time we could say, just no, every time he sends out a document that you have to pay 35% or 25% or 50%. Or in one case, 100%. Those deals, you can't beat those deals, but we're still willing to talk. And they all, literally every country wants to make a deal. We're in a good position. You would call it a position of strength. I don't talk that way because I'm a politician now, unfortunately. And I don't want to talk about strength. I just want to say we have to be treated fairly because we were ripped off on trade and the military for, you know, we protected other nations. Nobody paid us. Nobody did anything for us. Nobody helped us. And that's much different. You know, NATO is a much different situation now. When I got in, I believe we were paying for 100% of NATO, and now they're paying, they went from 2%, but they were paying 1%, to 5% that they're paying. It's a big difference. It's about $1 trillion difference, and they're wealthy, for the most part, wealthy countries. And some of them, they're among the most powerful, among the wealthiest countries in the world. So they're going to start paying, and they want to pay. And we had a great meeting about 1 month ago. That set the stage for what happened here, but it's very important. So I want to thank Scott for being here. I want to thank Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. You are doing a good job, Howard. Am I right when I say I really don't want deals? I just want the paper to get sent? Right? It's true. I don't know if this is on television. Yeah, it's always on television. SBA administrator and a great person, cabinet member, a friend of mine for a long time, Kelly Loeffler. Kelly, you're doing great. She's small business, right? She only does small business, but when you add it all up, it's the biggest bank in the world by a factor of about 10, right? She's doing a great job. And director of the White House Faith Office, Jenny Korn, who's also amazing. Thanks, Jenny. From the earliest days of our republic, the steady compass of faith has guided the strong hands of American workers, builders, and entrepreneurs like really no other. Our country was founded by pilgrims and believers, and every generation since, Americans of faith have built our communities and forged new industries and enriched our country by millions and millions of people and ways. John D. Rockefeller, J.C. Penney, Charles Goodyear, Truett Cathy, and frankly, we have people I could name right in this room sitting here that their names are every bit as big as that. They were inspired by their love of God, and now the proud tradition continues with all of you. And this group reminds us, as a nation that prays is a nation that prospers. And you see that I think one of the reasons we went so bad is they really wanted to take God and religion out of your lives. And there was nobody to, look up to. There was just nobody. It was, we were freewheeling, and we can't freewheel. Now we have to bring religion back into the country, and we're starting to do that, I think, at a very high level, Paula, a very, very high level. You see churches are starting to fill up again. Under the Trump administration, America is prospering, and America is winning like never before. Our country is back. So I was in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and then a month ago we were in Europe with all of the NATO countries, European countries, and plus Canada. And almost everyone said almost the exact same words. They said, 1 year ago, your country was dead. Terrible term, but that's what it is. Your country was dead. We thought it was finished. And now you've got the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true. Is the hottest country. Did you see they found $25 billion of essentially profits last night? They said, where did it come from? It came from management, but it came from tariffs. And it came from, good business skill. And I've always made money. Now I'm making it for you people. I've had good days and bad days, but in good days and bad days, I always found a way to make money, and we have to do that for our country. But and we did 188 billion in Scott just now, 188 billion in tariffs, 188, and we haven't even started yet. That's only for cars and steel. We actually have barely started. The economy is roaring, business confidence is soaring, incomes are up, prices are down, and inflation is dead. It's dead. We have a bad Fed chairman, really bad. If he would lower the rates, and I tried being nice to the guy, it doesn't help. He's like a knucklehead. No, he's a knucklehead. A stupid guy. He really is. Each point, think of this, each point costs us $360 billion. Billion. 1 point, $360 billion. 2 points, you got $700 billion. And we're way high. We're at 450 or 425? 450? And how do you go borrow money at 1% when the Fed has you at 450? And, you know, it's not that easy. I get angry at them. Why are we paying so much? You know, because he's got you up at this number. And we should always be the lowest. Now that we're doing great, we have no inflation. Think of it. Our stock market hit record highs. Everything's hitting a record high. We're really running good with no inflation. And we should be at 1%. We should be less than 1%. I think Switzerland is the lowest at like 0.5%. We should be lower because without us, there's no world. I don't want to sound overly aggressive, but without us, you have no world. And we put our country on solid footing. We had a man as president who was the worst administration, worst president in the history of our country. We've had some bad ones, but he's the worst ever. What he did at our border can never be forgotten. 25 million people allowed to pour into our country, all unchecked, unvetted, murderers, gang leaders, gangsters, people that you don't want in our country under any means, terrorists. We have many terrorists in our country, and we're watching them close. Tom Homan, by the way, is doing a phenomenal job. Christine Noem is doing a phenomenal job. We had last week, it was reported, nobody, not one, even I don't know if I believe that number, but it's done, the numbers are done by liberals. So they said, did you know that? They said we had nobody, zero, cross our border. It's the first time that ever happened. Zero. Did you hear that? It's like crazy. But we have people from mental institutions, insane asylums even. That's a mental institution on steroids, essentially. But we had people coming into our country. We can't have them. And we have to get them out. But we can never forgive this administration, this past. And I'm okay with administrations. I mean, I can go through a Democrat administration, say, hey, look, they worked hard, they tried hard. But the things that they did to this country, we can never, ever forget it. From the rigged elections to the border, to the transgender for everybody, from men playing in women's sport. You ever take a look at some of these records? There was a long-distance race, a marathon, where they had a great female runner, a number of them, but they had one in particular, and they had just an average male runner who had transitioned. He won the race at the end of the day by 5 hours and 14 minutes. They waited for 5 hours. The weightlifting records are better, though. The weightlifting records are better. You know, the way they took a record that hasn't been broken for 18 years. 18 years. And, you know, they'd add a quarter of an ounce on each side of the barbell. And they'd just a little tiny piece of stuff. She'd go up and she could get it up. And this guy comes along. Have you lifted before? Yes, at a low level. He was a low-level lifter as a man, but transitioned. And he goes up to that thing. Bing, 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 bing. Could have done it all day long. Broke the record by 119 pounds. The whole thing is crazy. The swimming records are pretty good, too. You got to see that. I told the story. You had this great group of young ladies, and they grew up with each other because, you know, they sort of swam at the top level. And they were swimming, and the one girl was seriously injured. She looked left, and she saw the same girl she grew up with, Kelly, in California. Same girls, you know, that young age, they sort of rise to the top. She looked to the right, she saw the same girls, but there was this giant standing right next to her. And he had transitioned, you probably heard this, he had transitioned. And she'd never seen her before. And when the race was started, he blew by her so fast that she suffered massive windburn. They had to take her. Sure. And he got out of the race and he had a little lunch, and then he came back and watched the rest of the young ladies finish up. The whole thing is crazy. And it's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning to women. But it is what it is. But what they did to this country, and we ended all of that, as you probably know. We ended the woke. The woke stuff is no longer in favor. But we're doing fantastically. Wages for blue-collar workers have surged by the most in over 60 years. Gas prices have reached the lowest level in 5 decades. Actually, we're going to see some really good numbers. Drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill. I got to make sure that people can afford to produce the gas. But the gas has gone to the lowest level in decades. And you're seeing $1.99, $1.98, and I saw $1.95 at certain states, not California, because every time it goes down, they add taxes onto you. You're at $6, $7. They just add taxes. All they do is they keep adding taxes. Terrible governor, doesn't know what he's doing. He may be a candidate, but if you go by success, you can't have him be a candidate. And on Friday, it was announced that the United States Treasury ran a budget surplus. Is that true, Scott? In June, for the first time in many, many decades. Wow. I didn't know that. That's a good one, too. I'm going to have to put that in my repertoire, Scott. But the biggest victory of all came 10 days ago when I signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law. Right? And just as I promised, we did something that was amazing. Everybody was against it. I wanted it. I know Scott and Howard liked the idea of it too, but it was very risky because they've never done anything like it in terms of the size. It's the biggest bill ever passed, of its kind ever passed, by far. And they were going to cut it into 2, 3, or even as many as 7 bills. And I said, the problem is that in the one big bill, everybody gets something. When you cut it into 7s, there are 4 or 5 of them, or 3 of them, right, Kevin, that you get nothing. All they're going to do is fight it. You'll never get them passed. And so we went with it. I was on a show called Deface the Nation. Have you heard of it? They're so bad. They're so bad. These people, they're so average. But I was on this show, Deface the Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, President Donald J. Trump on Deface the Nation. No, but they're all so bad. But we were on the show, and she said to me a question. She said, what would you call this bill? Would you want to have it called One Big Beautiful? I said, what I want is one great, big, beautiful bill. And Speaker Mike Johnson, John Thune, they were watching, and they said, what a great name for the bill. We actually ended up calling it that. We took the great out. I actually liked it even better. One great, big, beautiful. But they said, let's a little bit of a low-key. But we got to pass. But we got to pass because there's something for everybody. And there are things that people don't like, but you need them for the country. You have to do some things that are great for the country, but they wouldn't necessarily get the votes. And we got the votes. Think of it, not one Democrat vote. All the goodies that we got, not one Democrat voted in either the Senate or the House. And we're talking about tax cuts and business. So many different things that are so good, right? Not one Democrat vote went with us, not one. So we had to get almost every. In the House, we got 218 to 2. Think of that, 218 to 2. Nobody could do that. It's never been done. And that says, and we have Rand Paul Jr., who's a guy we call him Rand Paul Jr. because he always votes no. A guy named Massey always votes no. We had another guy who I helped very, very strongly, helped him with a very personal situation, got him through it. And he voted no. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. It's 12:54. We're inching closer to the top of the hour right now. You're watching live. There as President Donald Trump speaks at a faith luncheon in front of faith leaders. This just comes minutes ago, probably about an hour ago. President Donald Trump said today that he would punish Russia with tariffs if there isn't a deal to end the war in Ukraine within 50 days. Just really just another example of the rift and the growing anger with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump made the announcement during the Oval Office meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte this morning. All right, so on the top right is a look at the stock market. Some numbers are cut off, but it looks like things are up right now. It's all good, but it looks like things are up right now in the stock market. Below that, a case that our content partners there in Knoxville, Tennessee are following. So attorneys for a death row inmate are seeking court order to disable a defibrillator before execution. Let me give some background. This is just a headline. So attorneys for death row inmate Byron Black are asking a judge to step in ahead of his scheduled execution, arguing that a medical device implanted in his chest could prolong the process and cause unnecessary suffering. So we're keeping an eye on that appeal hearing that's happening right now. But for right now, let's tune back into President Trump, again, who is speaking live in front of faith leaders there at the White House. Let's take a listen in.
Call them, sir. I said, what time? I said, 2:30 in the morning. And we have to win, right? We can never give up. The people in this room, right? You never gave up. My supporter right from day one, and her husband with a bad damn back, right? How's his back? Is he okay? Every time I see him, he's got a bad back, but he's got a lot of cash, so. A lot. He's got a lot of cash. But no, they're great people. Thank you very much. I do appreciate you. You were there right at the beginning, you know, always was there. But we have a situation where we call up these people at 2:30 in the morning, and I called up. I got along with them all great. I liked them, but they're tough. You know, they're congressmen. When you're a congressman for 20 years or you're a senator for years, you're smart, and you're a survivor because you go through all sorts of hell. But I called up Congressman. I said, Jim, hi, Jim, how are you doing? And he said, fine, sir. I said, family's good, yeah. He said, sir, you have my vote. I never said what I was calling about. I said, I do, thank you very much. But how do you know what I'm calling you about? Well, I said, sir, I've been your friend for 2.5 years. You've never called me during normal hours. So I assume that if you're calling me at 2:30 in the morning, you're not calling me to ask me, how's the family doing? I said, yeah. So, pretty good. So I called up everyone. I think everyone with the exception of one, I had to speak a little bit, but I call up, sir, you have my vote. Thank you. Sir, you have my vote. Think of that. And we got 12 votes in a matter of, I called back 20 minutes later. I said, you got all the votes. That's spirit, right? That's spirit. They wanted to maybe hear. They wanted to have a little love. You know, the sad part is that some of the best people are the people that don't get any publicity because they go with something because it's good. So a guy like some of the people I'm talking about, but some of the people where you didn't even have to call, they vote yes, 100%. You don't have to waste any time with them. You don't have to beg them, come on, you can do it, come on, let's have lunch, let's have dinner. And then you have other guys that want you to suffer. I mean, some of these people that I just mentioned, whose names I just mentioned, you got to go through hell. And the ones that are really good, and they love the country, and they're doing right. I mean, what's the alternative? You know, the alternative here, you're getting the biggest tax cut in history, and with the Democrats, you're going to have the biggest tax increase in history. Now, we could go into 100 other details. They're equally as crazy. So I said, so what's the difference? So you're going to say no, and you're going to have the biggest tax cut in history this way, and you're going to have the biggest tax increase the other way, and you'll probably end up in a depression, because if you ever did that, it would be a shock to the whole world. That's what happened in 1929. I said, so you're going to vote for the other side? Well, sir, I'll do what's really appropriate. You know, they're losers. But you have that. Really, they're grandstanders. You know, you have grandstanders, and you have them in every business. And the Democrat has far fewer. They're grandstanders. But, you know, the one thing about them, they have bad policy. They're evil people in many ways, but they stick together. You don't have it where you don't have, I don't want to use too many names, but you don't have a Mitt Romney in the midst who makes you suffer. You don't have some of the people that I mentioned who make it so hard. They make it so hard. And the alternative is one of two things. You can either get all these things and make the economy strong, or you're going to literally have perhaps a depression where you people so rich, so beautiful, so nice to look at, will be totally busted. And let's see how long your wife stays with you. You're beautiful. She'll stay with you for about 3 weeks, and she'll say, darling, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore, darling. I'm leaving you. I said to one guy, he's a very, very unattractive man, but he's smart, and he's rich. And I said, you better hope we get this thing passed, because your wife will be gone within about 2 minutes. He said, you're right. But so we had a tremendous success, and it gives you the biggest tax cut in American history, the largest spending cut in American history, and the largest border security investment of all time. And again, we're doing great on the border. I almost say, why do we need it? We have such good numbers, but you need it. Ultimately, you're going to need it. I built hundreds of miles of border wall. Without that, you could have never had the results that we had. But to lift up the American family, we increased the child tax credit and made school permanent. We made it all permanent, the school choice. And we expanded school choice, and for every newborn child, we created what's called the Trump accounts. And this was Michael Dell. I don't know if Michael Dell's here, but Michael Dell, well, you tell him I mentioned his name, because it's true. He would call me for 3-4 years. I didn't know Michael. I just know he's a great success story and a great guy. That's all he talked about, was the account where you put $1,000, and as a baby is born, $1,000 into an account, and you let it be invested by, I guess you pick out some good money determinant or fund or index. And I guess at a certain age, like when they're 30, goes earlier than that, but when they're 30, they're supposed to have like $75,000. That would have a huge impact on their lives. And it could even be more than that. So that passed. And you know, it's funny, that was one of the easiest things we had to get passed. Can you believe it? I thought, so many people loved it. They actually call it the Trump accounts, and I didn't fight for that name, right? I didn't fight for that. I said, that's a very great honor. But Michael Dell was amazing. That's what he said he's going to invest billions of dollars doing it for children. He's going to put a lot of his money into it. But even more importantly than the economic success, we're restoring the spirit of our country. America is once again an optimistic nation. We were so down. It was depressing. We were so down. That's why I ran again. I got cheated. They rigged the election. But I said, you know, if I didn't think I won, I would have never run. Because that's like a poll, right? You lose, you lose. It's worse than a poll. But I saw the lack of spirit in this country for 4 years. It was a dark, horrible place. And for people of religion who were arresting your pastors, they were arresting if you went to church and you had a service outside. And the reason outside, because you had the COVID. And you could go outside. They'd arrest everybody for even having the service. I'll tell you, religion took a big hit because of the way they treated all of us. And we now have a confident nation, an optimistic nation, and we have one nation under God, and we'll always keep that term. And we're bringing back, very importantly, and not just evangelicals or Protestants or this, all religions, we're bringing them back into our country. As president, I've ended the radical left war on faith, and we're once again protecting religious freedom like never before in our country. We're protecting it like never before. We're getting rid of the Johnson Amendment that didn't let the pastors and ministers and everybody speak about politics. Now you're able to speak about politics, Paula. You can speak about, you can say, I don't like that guy, and they don't take away your tax-exempt status. You know, they take away tax-exempt. And I'll tell you, remember when that started? It was at the meeting room before I ran, 2015, a year before the election, and I was with 50 faith leaders. They were great, very well-known people, mostly Protestant, but you had rabbis, you had an imam, 2 imams, and we were talking. And I said, I'd love to have your endorsement. And they looked at me like, what? I'd love to have your endorsement. We have such respect for you, and your control are really very powerful. And they looked at me, they didn't say anything. Do you remember that? And I said, what's wrong with these people? I didn't know about the Johnson Amendment. Don't forget, I never did this stuff before. You know, it wasn't like I ran. I was on the other side. I was on the same side as you. You write contributions to people that you like. But I never ran, so I didn't know about the Johnson Amendment. And I called Paula and Jenny aside. I said, could I ask you, when I said I'd want your, support, your political support and endorsement, they looked at me very weird. What's going on? Well, sir, there's a thing called the Johnson Amendment. And if they even speak about anything having to do with politics, they will immediately take away their tax-exempt status. And if they lose the tax-exempt status in your world, that means you might as well close up your church. I said, you got to be kidding. So I can't really. And I told them, we had another meeting a couple of months later, and I said, you people in theory are the most powerful people. You're more powerful than man or woman because we have more than 50. Let's assume men and women are 50-50, but you have 80% between all the different religions. I said, you have more power than anybody, but you're not allowed to use your power. I said, we're going to get rid of that because people want to hear what you have to say more than anybody else, pretty much. And we did get rid of it, and we launched.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there on your screen is live. That's President Donald Trump. He's been speaking for the last 20 minutes or so, maybe longer than that, at a faith-based luncheon there at the White House. Let's shift away from that because we actually have a live picture of a developing story that we are following right now. This is in Lancaster County. So here's what we have from the sheriff's office in Lancaster County. You can see that car involved being towed away at this moment. So here's what we have. And this is according to Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. Earlier this morning, deputies of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office learned that officers of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department were pursuing the driver of a car which entered into Lancaster County on Highway 521 in the Indian Land area. Now, deputies observed the car and attempted to catch up to it, but were initially unsuccessful. The driver drove down Highway 521 almost all the way to Lancaster before making a U-turn and heading north. A trooper of the South Carolina Highway Patrol did initiate a pursuit. The car got off Highway 521 onto Highway 5, headed west. A Lancaster County Sheriff's deputy deployed stop strips across Highway 5 at Old Hickory Road, which the car ran over. The driver lost control and ran off the road at the intersection. The driver jumped from the car but was taken into custody. He was not injured. The car he was driving was damaged, as you saw there on your screen. This is a map, just kind of showing you the area of where this all went down. The car he was driving was damaged, as I mentioned before, but no other property damage was reported, and no other vehicles were involved. The driver is a young male. He's being transported to the Lancaster County Detention Center. Charges are pending. So just to kind of give you the Reader's Digest version of this all, a chase ended up in Lancaster County, and that is the result of it. The driver jumped out, tried to get away, but deputies and law enforcement were able to get him into custody, again, described as a young male, and taken to the Lancaster County Detention Center. And charges right now are pending. We were working to find out those charges, but this is a live look at that scene, Old Hickory Road and Rock Hill Highway there, as you see the Sheriff's Office, Highway Patrol, and that tow truck towing the car involved in this chase away from the scene. And as soon as we get more information on the story, we'll make sure to update you. But what I read there, that narrative I read, I know that was long, but that was from the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office giving you in detailed summary of what happened in this incident. All right, so let's turn now to some more local news stories that we are continuing to follow, including a deadly accident from July 3rd on Highway 321 in Hickory. A 26-year-old died in this crash. We did learn that 26-year-old is a mother. Bria Smith is following the story today. Bria, what can you tell us about this incident?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just before the 4th of July, I was actually nearing, that midnight point when a driver by the name of Scott Allen Lales was driving while impaired and unfortunately crashed into Gina Foster. So yes, she leaves behind 5 children and a significant other. Just a very unfortunate situation. We're actually on highway at 321 earlier, and we were able to see how congested and how widespread this highway really is. So there is a lot of traffic in and out of this highway. Lales actually did have his first hearing on July 7th, and then will again on August 26th go before a judge for more charges. But he is charged with driving while impaired and a felony death by a vehicle, just to name a few.
Such a tragic story that you're following there. So Bree, you actually got a chance to speak with a DWI counselor about these kinds of incidents. What did that counselor tell you?
Yeah, so we're actually sitting outside of that office because we're fresh from that conversation with David Lastly at DLA Solutions. So he pretty much was saying there's so much opportunity, if you are going to be drinking, especially during a holiday weekend like the 4th of July, where it is actually the highest day, for those DUI records. But that you could use rideshare services, Uber, Lyft, things like that. So he really says and does stress the importance of, other options instead of actually getting behind the wheel if you are, drinking or if you were drinking and things like that. But pretty much he is, after that point, once someone is charged with a DUI, they go in and assess it and pretty much just offer ways to be smarter before getting out on that road.
And Bria Smith, you can catch her at 4 and 6 o'clock this evening. Again, following that very tragic story from back on July 3rd there in Hickory, that deadly crash there. Bria, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So, again, you can catch Bria at 4 and 6 on that story. She is there in Hickory. Let's turn back now we brought you this earlier. We showed you a good chunk of it, but he is still speaking. We want to get out now to Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump is speaking in front of faith leaders. I don't know if he's winding out, but let's take a listen in.
Well, I believe that, and I believe it, that my life was saved by God to really make America great again. I really believe that. I think I have a son, he's a great shooter, like a championship shooter. Don and Eric was a great shooter, both of them. But they said that at that distance with that gun, you didn't have a chance. And we turned the head at the right time, didn't we? Huh? We turned the head at the right time. So, I don't know, some people say it was lucky and some people say something else. I say something else. I think God helped us. So I always believed in giving back to this nation, a nation that we love so much, and I know that everyone lives by that same sacred principle. The people in this room do, I can tell you. I hate when I see complainers, people that complain and they don't do anything about it. Like in many cases, the media, not all of the media. I must have had something because we won in a landslide. Think of it, we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won the popular vote. We won there's a district vote that's very interesting. It's where the whole map looks red for Republican, by the way. But the whole map came out, I think it was 2,750 to 505. Think of that. That's broken into little districts, little areas. We had an unbelievable election, and so I don't know. Somebody said, "Yeah, how do you win without the press?" But we have a hidden press, and the real hidden press and the hidden vote is the people and the word of mouth. Word of mouth is more important than the press, and they see what we do and they see how we do it. I want to thank all of you and your great communities, and it's a blessing to our country that you're here, and a blessing to our country that you become so successful and so great. And people look up to you, have no idea. You don't know. We take things for granted. You don't know. The people in this room are amazing. I even, looking at that list, I really said that's something. That's something great. And you're all believers. I think, Paula, you wouldn't have invited people that were not a lot of. Is there an atheist in the room? Any atheists? I don't think so. I wouldn't want to raise my hand if I were. I'd be in big trouble. No, you invited all people that are outstanding in faith and success, and it's a very noble group, but it's because of the patriotism and goodwill of citizens like you that America remains strong and faithful and free. And together we're going to continue the fight for Judeo-Christian values of our founding fathers. We'll grow our economy, we'll defend our sovereignty, we'll protect our children. When you look at the job we did, I was just thinking because President Putin said it to me and other leaders said it to me, when they looked at those B-2s go in, and think of it, they flew for 37 hours straight. We had 52 tankers, the gasoline tankers, and they rode along with them at different aspects, and they refueled. And not a screw was broken, not a mark was on those planes. Every engine was perfect. When they landed, they were just as good as when they took off. Think of that, 37 hours and about 40 minutes through a very rough territory. And those machines worked incredibly well and literally not a problem. And when I honored the flyers, we did it last week, I also honored the mechanics, the people that took care of those machines. And I said it's equally important. And you compare that, same country, you compare that with what happened with Jimmy Carter. It was a sad situation. The helicopters were coming down and they were crashing and the men were all over the place trying to get the hell out of there. And it turned out to be a hostage situation and horrible thing. And probably it was one of the things that cost them the election, certainly. But when you think of that and you see this was, in terms of perfection, they think it was a perfect military. We sent the planes to Guam. Everybody thought we were flying to Guam. And they said, oh, they're going to Guam. Well, Guam's out of the way. At the same time, we had some others going a different direction. I watched horrible CNN. You know, you have to watch sometimes your opposition, and they are opposition. And I saw that they had basically the plans of when we're going in, when we would be entering Iranian oil airspace. And I said, you know, that's weird. And I called the general, Raisin Kane, he's fantastic. I said, General, and Pete Hegseth, I said, I'm watching newscasts where they're saying what time you're taking off tomorrow and what time we're going to be entering the very dangerous airspace, the worst air space anywhere there is, anywhere that in the world. I said, what do you think? Sir, we'll be fine. We blow them away, we'll be fine. Because, you know, they went those B-2s with 7, and they were surrounded by a lot of great planes. F-22s, the most beautiful plane ever built. The fighter jet, F-35s, had a lot of different planes going with them. I said, but wouldn't a surprise be better? Yeah, it would be better. I said, well, then let me cancel it, and let's make it at a different time. So the day before, you know, I canceled it. I said, I'm canceling it. We'll do it sometime within the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, but I'm canceling it. And then I had a meeting, and I said, I have an idea, because I got slightly big coverage, to put it mildly. So everyone knew it was being canceled. I said, let's leave at the exact same time we were supposed to leave, the following day. And we took off, and that's when the planes went out to Guam and this and that, and we took off. And that was the only time. And they said it. That was the only time they knew we wouldn't be coming in. Was the exact same time that I came. I said, let's do something. And they flew in, and they were stealth, incredible planes. They were stealth. And they hit every bomb, hit their mark. Every single bomb hit the mark. It was unbelievable how they did it. And then they said, skedaddle. Skedaddle means get the hell out of there. They had to get out of that airspace. But it was an amazing thing, and I think it was so great for our country in so many different ways. You know, you see so many incompetent people, like the way we left Afghanistan with Milley and all these incompetent, stupid people. And Biden, I mean, it was him. Leave everything behind. We'll leave jets behind. I said to Milley, I said, so you mean to tell me, because I was going to leave. We would have left earlier than them, but we were going to leave with dignity and strength. I said to Milley, you mean you want to leave a jet fighter behind? Sure, it's cheaper if we do that. I said, wait a minute, give me a tank of gas and I'll fly it to Pakistan, or I'll fly it to someplace, or I'll fly it back home. Why is it cheaper? Oh, it's just cheaper. That's when I realized the guy was grossly incompetent, okay? He's telling me it's cheaper to leave a plane than it is that the planes cost $150 million apiece. Let's leave it, sir. It's just great. And they did. They left all, I was taking everything, but they left it behind. But when you look at what happened and compare that to what we have now, we have a real great machine. I rebuilt the military in my first term, and we left some of it to Afghanistan and the Taliban, and they have their parades. I hate those parades. Every year they have a parade wheeling down our equipment on some very unattractive street. That's, their Fifth Avenue. They show our equipment going down. It's getting older and older, but I hate to see it. But we're going to be working together to protect our children, and with the grace of God and the blessing of Providence, we will lead our country to heights that it's never seen before. I think we're going to be more successful in many ways, but I think we're going to be more successful than we've ever been. And I do think this, if we didn't catch it, if we would have lost this election, our country was finished. I think it was, we were run by incompetent people. We were run by an auto pen that nobody knows who used it. I think it's one of the biggest scandals in the history of our country. We were run by an auto pen. Nobody has any idea who used it, including Biden. He doesn't know. Saw that interview yesterday. He knew nothing. So it's a very terrible. We're against an evil group of people, and they're very smart. Very smart. He's not, but they are. They took over the Oval Office. They actually took over the Oval Office. We can never let a thing like that happen again. So, Paul, I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank Jenny, and most importantly, I want to thank the people in this room. You really are incredible people, an inspiration to our country. And I know you don't know that. You don't think it because you're too busy working. But you are. You're a great inspiration to young people that want to be just like you when they grow up. And thank you very much for being here. And it's a great honor. And, Paul, I think you're going to say a prayer. I'll stay with you while you say your prayer, okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. You guys may be seated for just a moment. And he is our greatest champion of faith of any president that the United States of America has ever had. We are deeply grateful for that. We are very honored that you are all here with us at the White House, and where faith is not sidelined, but has a seat at the table. And as we gather today as leaders of industry, of vision, of faith, I believe that today is going to be very enlightened, and I'm so overwhelmed. We're getting ready to worship and pray, and to just think that prayer, worship, and doing good works is welcome back into the White House. President Trump is a historic and a bold move established the White House Faith Office to recognize some simple truths: that America is strongest when faith is engaged and not silenced, when believers are activated and they are not isolated. This administration understands that people who are of faith, who are entrusted with wealth and influence as you are essential to building a stronger, freer, and a more compassionate nation. You're more than just CEOs and business leaders and entrepreneurs. You're stewards on divine assignment, builders of legacy, and vessels of impact. You've been called by God to his kingdom for such a time as this. And together we are witnessing something absolutely remarkable. More has been accomplished by this administration in the past 5 months than in the last several decades. And that is due to the leadership of President Trump, his administration, and the great team he has assembled. America's spiritual and moral foundations have been restored, and it's only the beginning. Today's not just a luncheon. It is a moment of divine alignment, a commissioning. And we believe that God is raising up business leaders who don't separate faith from enterprise, but who see their platforms and their pulpits as their businesses and instruments for eternal impact. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with great reverence and expectation. Your word declares in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" Lord, we do perceive it. We see the stirring of your hands, reviving hearts, reforming systems, raising up leaders at this very hour. We thank you for our great president, President Trump, for his life, his courage, his clarity, and unwavering defense of faith and freedom. May your wisdom guide him and your protection always surround him, according to your word that does not return void. In Psalm 89:21, that you say, "My hand will sustain him, and surely my arm will strengthen him." We bless every person in this room, those you've entrusted this wealth, strategy, and vision to, according to 1 Timothy 6. That you tell us, do not put our hope in riches, but be rich in good works, generous and ready to share. So they are your Josephs in Egypt, the wise stewards in famine. They are your Daniels in Babylon, the uncompromising voice, and your Lydia in Philippi, the ones who expanded the kingdom. Let this be more than a meeting. Let it be a movement where we come together and converge to bless communities, care for others, and reach nations, empowered by your purpose and your grace. Unite us with the common cause to use our time and talent. For thy kingdom come, thy will be done in the earth as it is in heaven. In the mighty matchless name of Jesus, we pray these things and come in agreement. Bless this food and bless everyone. And everybody said, amen. And by the way, it is Secretary Howard Lutnick's birthday, so I'll wish him a very happy birthday. We are so grateful for your time, President, and my husband John's going to worship. At any time that you have to go, we know that you have spent more than enough time, and you are running the country exceptionally for us, and we are all so grateful. So he will stay as long as possible, but will you let President know how much we love and appreciate him?
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. We are approaching the bottom of the hour. It looks like the luncheon right here is wrapping up. President Trump has left the luncheon after speaking again in front of faith leaders there at the White House. So that is what's happening there in Washington, D.C. This comes just this luncheon comes before President Trump met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte there in the Oval Office. But again, this wrapping up this luncheon here in front of faith leaders, faith-based luncheon there at the White House. All right, so let's turn away from that. We want to get a check-in, come back home, get a check-in on the forecast. Another week of 90s, but that's just what it is when you live here in the Carolinas. Let's check in with meteorologist, I was about to say Becca Birdsall. That's not Becca Birdsall. It's Majestic Storm. Let's take a listen to this.
It's gorgeous outside, but just putting things into perspective, I mean, it's not even noon yet and temperatures are already at 90 degrees. Another hot day, another gorgeous afternoon. There's a live look at Lake Norman. If you're heading out to the lake, that'd be a nice place to be. Just make sure you do stay weather aware because we do still have those chances for a pop-up shower or thunderstorm, just like we typically do almost every afternoon during this time of the year. It's warm, 88 degrees for a lot of us. We're seeing those dew points into the upper 60s, low 70s, so it's making it feel like we're already into the lower end of the 90s. A few things you're going to want to know as you're starting to plan your new week ahead. We are settled into a very typical summer-like weather pattern. Starting out the day with plenty of sunshine, increasing clouds through the afternoon with those chances for scattered showers and storms. We'll have that today. Temperatures will be near normal, low to mid 90s all week long. And within those thunderstorms, we do have a flooding risk. We're concerned that if any of those storms do form, they could bring heavy downpours, just like what we have seen. Yesterday was a hot Sunday, wasn't it? 97 is where we topped off. Today we are forecasting 93 in Charlotte. But if you're in the mountains, look at these nice temperatures, a mix of 70s and low 80s. Great day if you want to work out in the yard. 78 for Blowing Rock, 90 degrees in Lenore. Morganton checking in at 91 with a nice mix of sun and clouds as we're heading into the afternoon as well. It's one of those weather days where we start out with clear conditions, then a few more clouds will start to filter on through towards the afternoon and evening. 92 in Lincolnton, 94 in Gastonia today. Monroe checking in at 93 this afternoon, and everyone out there in Rock Hill about 94. So very summer-like. And then our overnight lows tonight only dropping down mainly into the 70s, so we're not getting a lot of cooling throughout the overnight hours. Keep this in mind because we still have multiple 90-degree days in a row, and so far we have since had 7 consecutive days where we've at least hit 90 degrees. Look at the next day. We are going to see those temperatures bump up into the low to mid 90s for us today. They'll start to drop back down tomorrow just a little bit, and then each and every day we see those temperatures increase at least 1 degree. But I'm also noticing throughout that same time period we have at least an opportunity each and every day for a shower or a thunderstorm, and that does include today. Right now satellite and radar is hardly picking up on a thing. A little bit of wispy high clouds here and there, but we're watching this boundary that's just off to the north and to the west of us. As it gets closer, I think we'll get more cloud coverage into the afternoon, and we'll be watching for those pop-up showers and thunderstorms. Here's 3 o'clock this afternoon. You can see a few starting to move in across Morganton, the mountain counties, maybe around the Charlotte metro area, but notice as we progress through time, this is 6 o'clock now, they're becoming a little bit more scattered in nature, so meaning not everyone will receive these storms. Of course, we know that, but again, if you get caught in one of these thunderstorms, we can't rule out that there won't be heavy downpours, dangerous lightning, gusty winds, so make sure you are able to get inside, seek shelter if you just so happen to be in one of those storms. Because it's not just going to be today, we could even see a random pop-up storm throughout the overnight hours. Tomorrow morning starts out gorgeous, and then, could you guess, we're going to do it all over again for our Tuesday afternoon with more thunderstorms and scattered rain showers in the forecast. We're watching this area of low pressure off the Florida coast. Notice how it starts to shift off to the west, moving across the Gulf over the next 36 hours. There's a good indication that we could have some tropical development. The National Hurricane Center is still showing this area shaded in yellow as our next area of interest, meaning that really over the next 7 days we have a 30% chance that this could be our next named storm. And if that happens, his name would be Dexter. You can see the 7-day forecast here. 90s, hot, humid, with each and every day we'll see those opportunities for showers and thunderstorms.
All right, so that is a look at the forecast. Okay, so we want to get back now to Washington, D.C. So I know earlier, or right before we got the weather, you heard from President Donald Trump at a faithful lunch. But prior to that, he had some strong words for Russian President Vladimir Putin. So President Donald Trump said today he will punish Russia with tariffs if there isn't a deal to end the war in Ukraine within 50 days. He said that as he made an announcement during the Oval Office meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Let's take you there now in case you missed it.
Maybe that was the most important because we've made tremendous progress together. And one of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine. And would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war, I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. It can be more simple. It's just the way it is. I hope we don't have to do it. But regardless, we are going to be, we make the greatest military equipment in the world, whether it's missiles. You saw that recently in Iran, the way those planes flew in, they had every single 14 bombs hit every target. Then you had the helicopters shoot a total of 30 bombs, 30 missiles, and they hit every single, Marco, is that right? Every single piece, every single target. And it was, I guess, on a scale of 0 to 10, they say it was about a 15. That's how successful it was. That's how lethal it was, a word they like to use nowadays. But it was an amazing, well-organized attack that people in this country wanted to do for 24 years. You know, when we had the pilots in last week, they were saying, sir, we've been practicing this for 24 years, meaning people, not them, but other people that are a little older now. But they too, and you were the one that let us do it. But we've been practicing it 3 to 4 times a year for 22, 24 years, because they always knew they had to stop Iran from doing what they were doing, which is trying to come up with a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb. And we did it very successfully. And we make the best equipment, the best missiles, the best of everything. The European nations know that. And we've made a deal today, and I'm going to have Mark speak about it, but we've made a deal today where we are going to be sending them weapons and they're going to be paying for them. The United States will not be having any payment made. We're not buying it, but we will manufacture it and they're going to be paying for it. Our last meeting of a month ago was very successful in that they agreed to 5%, which is more than $1 trillion a year, so they have a lot of money. And these are wealthy nations. They have a lot of money and they want to do it. They feel very strongly about it, and we feel strongly about it too. But we're in for a lot of money and we don't want to do it anymore. And we can, but we make the best, and we're going to be sending the best to NATO, and in some cases to maybe, at Mark's suggestion, if we go to Germany, where they're going to send early on missiles, and they'll be replaced, and NATO is going to take care of it. It's going to be coordinated by NATO, and they're going to work very much with Matt Whitaker, who's right here, who's a great ambassador, and Matt's going to be coordinating. You better do a good job, Matt.
I will.
But Matt's going to coordinate. He's a very talented guy. He's going to coordinate everything. So in a nutshell, we're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO. NATO may choose to have certain of them sent to other countries where we can get a little additional speed, where the country will release something and it'll be mostly in the form of a replacement. And I'd like to have Mark, and again, just a highly respected, pretty young guy, for having had the career that he's had, because he had an amazing career before going to NATO. So we spent a lot of time together over the last couple of months. And if you could say a few words.
Absolutely. No, Mr. President, dear Donald, this is really big. This is really big. You called me on Thursday that you had taken a decision. And the decision is that you want Ukraine what it needs to have to maintain, to be able to defend itself against Russia, but you do want Europeans to pay for it, which is totally logical. And this is building on the tremendous success of the NATO summit. The 5%, but also the decision to keep Ukraine strong, and the decision to increase our defense industrial production. So based on that, that was Europe stepping up. This is again Europeans stepping up. So I've been in contact with many countries. I can tell you that at this moment, Germany massively, but also Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, they all want to be part of this. And this is only the first wave. There will be more. So what we will do is work through the NATO systems to make sure that we know what Ukrainians need, so that we can make packages. Of course, in a way, we discussed it this morning with Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, in a way that, of course, the US will put on its stockpiles necessary to defend this country. That's absolutely clear. But it will mean that Ukraine can get its hands on really massive numbers of military equipment, both for air defense, but also missiles, ammunition, etc., etc. So if I was Vladimir Putin today and hear you speaking about what you were planning to do in 50 days and this announcement, I would reconsider whether I should not take negotiations about Ukraine more seriously than I was doing at the moment, if I was Vladimir Putin. But when I'm Ukraine, I think this is really great news for that. So I really want to thank you for that. And that means Europeans paying for it. And again, I mentioned all these countries, we will deal with that. And exactly as you said, it might also mean that countries will move equipment fast into Ukraine, and then the US later backfilling it because speed is of the essence here. So really, thank you. This is important.
You did a great job. That's a really great job. We've been very successful in settling wars. You have India, Pakistan. You have Rwanda and the Congo. That was going on for 30 years. India, by the way, and Pakistan would have been a nuclear war within another week, the way that was going. That was going very badly. And we did that through trade. I said, we're not going to talk to you about trade unless you get this thing settled. And they did. And they were both great leaders. And they were great. But Rwanda and the Congo, that was going on for 30 years. And at least 7 million people killed, and killed with a lot of pretty rough weapons like machetes, heads chopped off, going on for many years. You couldn't even get near the countries. Nobody wanted to get near. It's so frightening. And we got that one solved. Serbia, Kosovo, got that solved. That was going to be one that was going to happen. And again, that was something I used. I use trade for a lot of things, but it's great for settling wars. That was really very important. We're working, Marco is working very hard with everybody here on the Strip, the Gaza Strip. I call it the Gaza Strip, one of the worst real estate deals ever made. They gave up the oceanfront property, one of the worst deals ever made. But it was supposed to bring peace, and it didn't bring peace. It brought the opposite. But we're doing pretty well on Gaza. Steve Witkoff is here, and I think we could have something fairly soon to talk about. And we solved another one, that we just seem to have, Armenia and Azerbaijan. It looks like that's going to come to a conclusion, successful conclusion. We worked on Egypt with their next door neighbor who is a good neighbor. They're friends of mine, but they happened to build a dam which closed up water going into a thing called the Nile. I think if I'm Egypt, I want to have water in the Nile, and we're working on that one problem, but it's going to get solved. They built one of the biggest dams in the world, a little bit outside of Egypt. You know about that? You've been hearing about that one. And that turned out to be a big problem. I don't know. I think the United States funded the dam. I don't know why they didn't solve the problem before they built the dam. But it's nice when the Nile River has water. It's a very important source of income in life. It's the life of Egypt. And to take that away is pretty incredible. But we think we're going to have that solved very quickly. So we do good. The only one we haven't been able to get to yet is Russia. And I'm not happy. And I will tell you that Ukraine wants to do something. Again, it's a war that should have never started. If I were president, it never would have happened. I used to speak to President Putin about it a lot. It was the apple of his eye. But once I saw what was going on, I said, they're gonna have a war here. I was outside. The election was rigged. And I was outside looking in. And I said, that thing's going to be a war. Couldn't believe it, because what Biden said was the exact opposite of what should have been said. And it started, and it's a real mess. We're losing, I guess they're losing 5,000 or 6,000 people a day. It's actually now more. I was saying 5,000 a day. It's actually more now. Mostly soldiers, but a lot of people in cities and towns that are getting blown up too. It's a horrible war, and it should be stopped. And so if it's not done, if we don't have an agreement in 50 days, that's what we're doing. Secondary tariffs, and they're biting. And I hope we don't get to the point where we do, but I've been hearing so much talk. It's all talk. It's all talk, and then missiles go into Kiev and kill 60 people. It's got to stop. That's got to stop. But the purpose of this is to say that there's a very big deal we've made. This is billions of dollars worth of military equipment is going to be purchased from the United States, going to NATO, etc. And that's going to be quickly distributed to the battlefield. Ukraine will take it up. And, say what you want about Ukraine. When the war started, they had no chance. And they still would have had no chance if the equipment. They had the best equipment because we do make the best planes and missiles, and we make the best military equipment in the world by far. And we have new things coming out that are beyond belief, and I'm very excited about the Golden Dome. It's going to give us very strong protection. We're started that, but they had courage because somebody has to use that equipment. And they fought with tremendous courage, and they continue to fight with tremendous courage. But they don't have, they're losing on equipment. And
all right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We want to get to something happening live right now in Raleigh, North Carolina. Officials, specifically North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson and Superintendent Mo Green, addressing federal education cuts as we speak. Let's take a listen in.
Action against our children. One of the benefits of public education is that we welcome each and every student just as they are, and we strive every day to provide every student the education they need to become contributing members of our society. Moreover, federal law requires that we provide the services for which funding is being withheld. The funding freeze will now force districts and schools to divert other funds and resources to meet these obligations, thus harming every student across our state. In fact, every school and classroom in our state, urban or rural, large or small, across all economic and demographic groups, benefits from these resources and programs. In short, we all benefit from these programs. Of all of our collective responsibilities as Americans, educating our children should be the one that is unencumbered by partisan division. So let's unite in providing all of our children with the education they deserve for a better tomorrow for all of us. We invite our families, educators, and communities to join us in calling on the executive branch of the federal government to act now based on what is in the best interest of every student in North Carolina. Our students' futures cannot wait. I'll now turn to Chair Ellen Congressional.
Good afternoon. As chair of the Alamance-Burlington Board of Education, I stand before you today alongside our State Attorney General, our State Superintendent of Public Schools, and our State Board of Education Chair, united in our commitment to the students and families across North Carolina. Specifically, I want to express my concerns about a critical issue that directly impacts the foundational support systems within our schools: the federal funding that is currently being withheld. We are deeply concerned by the decision to withhold federal education funding that directly impacts the day-to-day operations and critical support services in our schools. These funds are not discretionary. They are allocated specifically to support programs and personnel that are essential for providing a high-quality education to all students, especially our at-risk youth. The impact of these withheld funds is immediate and tangible. Let me share a few examples from our district. Title II Part A funding is key for supporting our educators. It pays for all mentor stipends, which are a crucial piece in retaining and recruiting new teachers, not only in our district, but in the profession. Funds 2 beginning teacher coordinator positions who guide about 250 new educators in our district, and covers training and teacher stipends for our summer symposium, ensuring ongoing professional development. Without it, our ability to support and develop our teaching force is severely disrupted. Title III funding directly supports our multilingual learners. It funds 2 MIL specialists, elementary and secondary, who provide direct support to students and teachers, pays for a data specialist position to track student progress, covers the Elevation software platform, which is essential to ML student data management, and provides teacher stipend for training to enhance the instruction for these students. It also pays for additional to be around 4,000 in our upcoming school year. That is equivalent to 17% of our enrollment. Our ability to serve our growing population of ML students, which we currently project to be around 4,000 in our upcoming school year. That is equivalent to 17% of our enrollment. Title IV funding Part A impacts student well-being and academic support. It pays for our lead counselor position, a critical position for student mental health and guidance, funds for literacy tutors, which are essential for early intervention and student development. It pays for important family engagement sessions and has supported our PowerSchool analytics software used by our lead counselors to identify and target areas of student need. These are not luxuries. They are fundamental to creating a supportive and enriching learning environment. The withholding of these funds is not just a financial challenge. It's a challenge to our commitment to provide educational excellence for all students. It impacts our ability to provide the resources and support that all of our students deserve. I am thankful and encouraged, along with many others in public education, to see a united team at our state level working tirelessly to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Any questions? Hi.
Hi. Attorney General, has this lawsuit been filed yet?
Yes. And you're all going to get a copy of the lawsuit in the release that we are about to send out momentarily.
And this is not the prior lawsuit about mental health.
I'm not sure what you're referencing, but no, this was filed all of about 15 minutes ago. Okay. Yes.
Lawsuits can take a long time, and we're hearing that the effects are being felt already. So what's being done in the meantime, in the immediacy, to kind of combat those?
Well, I'm going to let some other folks speak to stopgap measures. From a legal standpoint, what our lawsuit is requesting specifically is a preliminary injunction. We're asking the court to treat this as an emergency. We are hopeful that we get an outcome before the school year begins. We need this to be resolved within a matter of weeks, not months. That's our goal. As far as stopgap measures, please.
So I'll lift up two stopgap measures. One is that we are having to look for other resources, both at the state and local levels, to try to fill in these gaps. There are, for example, what's called carryover funds, federal funds that can allow for continuation of programs for a limited period of time. And so to the extent that we have some of those available, we'll use those as a potential stopgap measure. The second thing that we have to do is we have to think about actually more dramatic issues and measures as well. Things like considering doing reductions in force, doing things like not filling certain positions, combining classrooms or combining duties, because we don't know if and when these resources will ultimately become available.
And kind of in relation to that, you know, we know that the Trump administration would like to zero out a lot of these funds come the next fiscal year. You know, what is maybe your mindset for preparing for something like that?
Please.
So as we think about what may happen in future years, we certainly believe that we have to take the time to figure out how we adjust. Number one, see what those resources might be, right? And make adjustments along the way. So there may be some positions that absolutely have to be reduced or eliminated. There may be other ways of trying to fill in those gaps over time as well. There'll be people that leave an organization, and so you might be able to do this without having to do actual reductions in force. But let me be clear about something. When you talk about future years, then you have the opportunity to plan and then execute on the plan. Here, where Congress has already authorized funding, then we were planning to execute on the funding authorized and now find ourselves having to adjust on the fly. And that's not good for certainly educators, and it's horrible for our students as well.
Please. Along the lines of the state superintendent's comment about future years, the one thing we absolutely need to do prepare for future years is for our representatives in the Congress to hear from us, to hear from parents, teachers, and citizens across our state on how important these programs are to their children and our children, and because it will take an act of Congress. And so our representatives need to understand how important these are.
Yes.
Is it true that Congress appropriated the funding for these various title programs at the same level as last year, but not with line item appropriations for these sub-programs that didn't come? And so are you asking the court to interpret the gray area about what's required by law?
No, I don't believe we're asking the court to interpret any particular gray area here. With respect to the line item nature of anything that Congress may have approved, we'll have to take a specific look into that, but we do not consider this to be a gray area case. We consider this to be an open and shut case. Yes.
Two questions, one for you, one for Superintendent Green. What specifically did that email read? And then for Superintendent Green, what will be your message to parents who are obviously expecting some sort of disruption, at the very least, probably this next school year? How best should they anticipate this?
As far as the specific email, in the press release that we'll send all of you, it will have a link to the complaint. The complaint language is going to include the email. It was all of 3 sentences, so not a lot of real estate there.
Great. With regards to what can parents expect, so it's going to vary across the state as to what parents can expect the impacts to be. And I know that our educators and our school administrators will be doing everything that they can to try to minimize those impacts as best as possible. It's hard to know, right? At this moment, what will happen in an individual school. They may see, for example, a particular classroom that existed last year that may not exist this year. They may not see, for example, some of the professional development activities that are done behind the scenes to prepare new teachers to do what they need to do when they open up their classrooms this year. But that may result in those teachers not being fully prepared to support students when they arrive. And so what I would tell parents is hang in there with us as we make those adjustments. We'll try to do our best, both at the local level and at the state level, to minimize those impacts, but recognize that this is too significant for us to suggest that there won't be any impacts that aren't felt at the local and even at the state level if we don't get these withhold funds released.
Obviously, the state hasn't passed its budget yet, Mr. Green.
Yes.
Have you had any discussions with any legislative leaders about...
I'm sorry, start your question again.
The state hasn't passed its budget yet. So have you had any discussions with legislative leaders about maybe what funding might be available from the General Assembly and the media?
Yeah, so at this point, no. Have not had any conversations with members of the General Assembly about this particular impact. Certainly, this adds to a very challenging situation for us. When you break down, I'll give you rough numbers, you're talking about 60% of our dollars comes from the state, 30 or so percent local, and then 10% federal. That varies across districts, but on average. And so now we're talking about 60% of a budget that we don't know exactly what we're going to get, and now we've added on to this. This is a significant challenge for us. This is in line, though, with something that Chairman Davis lifted up about what we need to do for future years. I would suggest to you that we need to do that for this year as well, particularly at the state level, because they haven't passed a budget. Now is a good time for them to pass a budget that will, in fact, allow our students to receive the educational opportunities they so richly deserve. And seeing what's happening at the federal level, I would encourage them to think about whether they need to increase funding to allow us to be able to do that.
She's got a question.
Okay.
This is a question, just a ballpark estimate perhaps. How much about, you said you have some stopgap money, continuation money, et cetera, about how much or how long do we have?
So it's going to vary depending on which title that we're talking about. But in general, you're talking about 3 months at the outside. In some, it's going to be less than that. Yeah, and then as stopgap measures, you're also thinking about, well, what other places might you be able to move some resources around as well? And so all of those things have to be taken into consideration. But we don't have a long window within which to deal with this issue. And in some instances, as I said earlier, school has started, and so we've got to deal with those issues right now.
State lawmakers proposed basically banning you from suing the federal government this year. Did that ever get passed?
It passed one chamber, but not the other. I think this is a great example of why not to do something like that. This is potentially $165 million to the state. This is why you want an independent attorney general who has the authority to do exactly this thing. I think Shima had a question for you.
Superintendent Green, can you talk a little bit about what are you hearing from school districts about how this is affecting them during their hiring?
I'm hearing a lot, and our staff is hearing a lot about the impacts to local districts in a number of different ways, including
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We are right there at the top of the hour, folks. Right there, live on your screen. That is North Carolina Superintendent Mo Green. Right beside him or behind him is North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson. They're holding a press conference there in Raleigh discussing federal education cuts and the impact on the school systems here. This press conference that we dipped into, 30 minutes ago, you guys. So that is happening right now live in Raleigh. What we are keeping our eye on is this. This is a live shot from Asheville. We are awaiting North Carolina Governor Josh Stein. He is set to speak there in Asheville. Look, we are about, 10 months since Hurricane Helene hit? We're approaching a year since Hurricane Helene devastated Western North Carolina. Governor Stein was just in Western North Carolina, Chimney Rock, a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So he's made it a big priority to be there in Western North Carolina. His administration, he was there actually day one of his term. So that's been a big thing of his, making sure that Western North Carolina continues to have the necessary resources, bounce back. That's what he's been, I guess his message has been since he's been governor here in North Carolina. Again, back in Western North Carolina, this time in Asheville after visiting Chimney Rock. As soon as we get Governor Stein, we will make sure to bring you there so you can hear the latest from Governor Josh Stein. I'll pop back out here on camera. Let's come back closer to home. So, all right. So we are following up on it was a violent weekend here in the Charlotte area, specifically Uptown. So in Uptown, one person is dead, 5 others hurt in a shooting there in Uptown. This is the second shooting this past weekend in a popular nightlife area. That's a look at the scene there in Uptown. We want to. I want to send it out to WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre, who is covering it. Jesse, you're in Uptown, so Jesse, catch us up. What's the latest on this case?
Well, like you mentioned, Nick, this is a popular area in Uptown near First Ward Park off of North College Street. This is an area that, and if you look at the alleyway behind me, where there are multiple clubs or night places, events or, for events and nightlife out here. And so there's a lot that's going on in this area. And so around 2:00 in the morning, unfortunately, nights of having fun turned into gunfire. Now we know that one person was killed and police have identified him as Arley Bryant. And I was able to get in touch with some of his family members, and they say he was a beloved father, and this is a devastating loss for them as they continue to grieve. Now, Encore nightclub, which is also in this alleyway, did confirm that one of their employees did pass away in this shooting. And, again, they're also, impacted with this loss. But, like you mentioned, there's been 2 shootings in this same area. And, within 24 hours of each other, First Ward Park, folks going out late night and then gunfire erupting. So, when you have things like that, there's definitely a lot of questions about safety and security. Now, I did reach out to CMPD and I had so many questions for them. Someone did call me back and they say that they do have officers and they did have officers patrolling this area. They have officers patrolling this area night and day, and that patrolling was not a concern, was not something that they were lacking on. They couldn't answer any more questions. They couldn't give me any more details, but that is the information they wanted to pass over. So again, this is just a devastating situation when you have folks losing their life, and we don't know the details of exactly what happened here,
Yeah, you're talking about a sad situation there. Jesse, I do want to ask, I know, as we mentioned, I know you reached out to the family of the victim. You reached out to police. Have you talked to the folks that live there or probably out and about there? Like, if so, how are they feeling?
It's so funny because there's a lot of tourists that do come in this area, right? So you get a lot of them. And, just speaking to folks who are in the area, a lot of folks do feel safe over here, but a lot of times they're not also hanging out late night in this area, right? So that might have a different feel when you're hanging out late night. The crowd might be, a different group or so forth. But folks I'm seeing here relatively feel like they're safe. However, we did get some emails and concerns from folks who live in the area who say that complete opposite, right? So different people have different feelings about it and say that, there is concerns about safety and that they do feel like there should be a higher police presence in this area, not only because of these 2 shootings, but just in the overall large crowds that happen and general violence in the Uptown area.
That is Jessie Pierre live in Uptown. You can catch her at 5 and 6 this evening. Jessie, thank you for your time and stay safe out there, all right?
Thank you.
All right, that's Jessie Pierre. She's covering and following up on the string of violence there in Uptown Charlotte. She'll be live at 5 and 6, and then you can catch her story on our website and on our app. All right, so we want to shift now to where are we headed now?
Connecticut. This is a new lawsuit being announced against the Trump administration, and we just got a feed in, Nick, of the Connecticut Attorney General speaking to the media.
Okay, let's take a listen in.
And across the state, school districts, more than 200 of the State Department of Education serves, and local education agencies, as they're technically known as, are making plans right now. There are summer camps right now that are in the process of being defunded, and school districts, administrators, boards of education, teachers are now looking down the barrel of an unprecedented, draconian, catastrophic cut to funding. And that's why the state of Connecticut today has sued with 25 other states. We've sued the Trump administration, the Department of Education, over a $6.8 billion cut to education that has already been allocated and appropriated to the states and to local school districts across this country. That means $53 million to the state of Connecticut. And I said that to the governor when we were walking in. $53 million, and his eyes popped. This is big money, as big as it gets. $6.8 billion. $53 million to Connecticut. We're joined by 25 states, including the states of Pennsylvania and Kentucky, who are acting through their governors, Governor Shapiro and Governor Shapiro. And these 25 states are coming together to stop what has become, I've said before, a war on America's children, a war on families. This is a war on America's parents and teachers and education. Let me tell you what's happening. On July 1st, they were supposed to send us 25% of the money, and they didn't. And Mike McKeon is here to talk about the impact, but SDE, the state itself, serves over 200 local education agencies, local districts, more than 500,000 students, more than 500,000 students. This is money, some of which has been allocated for 60 years now. Under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, it's now called the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, E-S-S-A, so you'll hear us talk about ESSA funds. This is not marginal, niche funding that was tucked into some budget bill somewhere. This is the top line stuff. We're talking about ESSA funds under Title I, Title II, Title III. This is the big ticket stuff that we as a state.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. A busy afternoon, you guys, and it continues right now. You're watching live, as that is Connecticut's Attorney General, William Tong, announcing a new lawsuit against the Trump administration when it comes to federal cuts to education. We'll shift now to our neck of the woods, Asheville, North Carolina. That is Governor Josh Stein. He is there in Asheville. Again, we are 10 months, approaching 1 year since Hurricane Helene devastated that area. He's back in Western North Carolina today. Let's take a listen in.
As we all know, has so many incredible things to offer people, whether it's unforgettable landscapes, unforgettable adventures, unforgettable food, unforgettable crafts, unforgettable people. When folks come from all over the state, whether they come from all over the country, we want to remind the people of Western North Carolina that we are here with them as they rebuild and come back. My wife Anna, the First Lady, and I are here this week. We got up here on Friday. We're going to stay here all week, going to different communities, highlighting different activities, different restaurants, different natural amenities, which are just so special here in Western North Carolina, because we want the people of North Carolina to know, come here, you will have a fantastic time. Western North Carolina is open for business. We've been so far to Catawba Falls, Old Fort, we've been to Burnsville, Spruce Pine, the River Arts District here in Asheville, and it's been incredibly uplifting. Yes, there are places that are still working hard to come back, but so many places have their doors wide open, and it's up to us to enter those doors and bring our commerce to Western North Carolina. I'm excited about Asheville Airport because what this does is it opens up Western North Carolina to the entire country, frankly, to the entire world. This airport is the third busiest airport in North Carolina, after Raleigh and Charlotte. There is some 22,000 jobs that are created from this operation. It creates $3.9 billion of economic activity each year. 2 million visitors come through its doors on an annual basis. 6 major airlines fly here. There are nonstop flights to New York, to Washington, D.C., to Chicago, to Miami, to Denver, places far afield. So what we want is for people all across this country to know what we know in Western North Carolina, we know in North Carolina, which is you can rediscover the unforgettable here in Western North Carolina by using this beautiful new terminal at Asheville Airport. Lee?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. Thank you for hosting us here at the Asheville Airport. It's great to be here. This is actually my second time in the airport today. I got to use it this morning. I flew in from Charleston. Asheville Airport. It's great to be here. This is actually my second time in the airport today. I got to use it this morning. I flew in from Charleston. And it's great to have that kind of access to be able to get in and out of Western North Carolina, because we know how much Western North Carolina depends on travel and tourism, and that travel and tourism economy depends on the access and the opportunity that's created by this amazing airport and this brand new terminal. So we're so proud of that. Thank you, Lou, for your work on that. What we want is to help everybody around the world, around the country, come back to Western North Carolina to enjoy the hiking, to enjoy the dining, to enjoy playing in the ways that we all have for a very long time and know that we will for a long time to come. Because what it's really about in this campaign, rediscovering the unforgettable, are those unforgettable memories that you'll find on your iPhone a year later or 2 years later when you're looking at your photos of your family, your friends, your loved ones at Smoky Mountain National Park or at Sierra Nevada, or doing something amazing here in Western North Carolina. So we want to remind the public that it's time to remember, time to rediscover the unforgettable, time to come back to Western North Carolina, because it's not just about memories, it's about fueling an economy, where 50,000 small business owners across North Carolina support travel and tourism with amazing service that helps to create those great memories that bring people back. So, however you want to get here, by plane, train, car, or bike, come to Western North Carolina. Thank you.
At this point, any of the three of us would be happy to take any questions.
You mentioned unforgettable people, and one of the first
threat coming.
Yeah, people here are exceptionally hospitable. Many people have been here a long time, and even those who have not been here a long time quickly adopt to the culture. And it's about looking out for your neighbor. If your neighbor needs something, it's because they need something, and you will do everything you can possible to help them. In Old Fort, I stopped at a restaurant there, and the proprietor, that family, provided some 30,000 meals to people because they didn't have running water, they didn't have power, and they had a generator at that restaurant, and they just took care of their neighbors. And there is story after story after story just like that throughout Western North Carolina. And what that tells us is that we, the people of the state, frankly, we, the people of this country, have to be here for the people of Western North Carolina just as they have been there for themselves.
Sorry, just one more. What makes this initiative especially important to boost that tourism for an area of the state that receives so much heartache with the hurricane?
What I think that a lot of people who are not from Western North Carolina don't appreciate is how much progress has occurred since the storm. That restaurants are open, stores are open, the crafts people are putting their wares out for sale. And what we want is for people not to associate the floods, the high water mark, but to realize that water has receded and people have come back and rebuilt, and they need our business. We need to make sure that as many people can come to Western North Carolina as possible so that we can have fun, spend our money. There is no better way that the people of North Carolina can do something to help people that will be more enjoyable to them than coming to Western North Carolina and having a great time. Taking a hike. Yeah, I was in, as I said, in McDowell County. I climbed the mountain, came down, and then I went to Hiller Beer in Old Fort. And it was a great time. So it's a way to help the community, but also to have a lot of fun.
And Governor, I know that we spoke to Jeffrey Burrows. I know you had the pleasure of talking to him on Saturday. He told me, as he probably told you, that the majority of the artists out there in the River Arts District rely on tourism.
That's right.
About half of them still aren't up and running. So I know he's told you that the business has come back some, but what does this extra push do to help people like Jeffrey and all the other artists he represents?
Yeah, what he told me was there were about 750 artisans that did their business in the River Arts District. About half of them are back. That means that half are not. They're showing their stuff somewhere else, or else some of them may have moved. But it means that there are over 300 there today. The River Arts District is open for business, and I know this because I went to Jeffrey's shop yesterday and bought my wife a little necklace, and so I scored some points at home. But it was beautiful jewelry, and there are artisans like Jeffrey, hundreds of them, in the River Arts District. So you will go there and still find places where you can have a great beer, you can have great pizza, you can go to a great craftsperson. You will still have a great time as you remember the unforgettable.
Can you give us a sense of what types of activities you're going to be doing for the rest of your time?
Yeah, we've been on hikes, and we'll do a few of those. Did a bike tour of Asheville with Flying Bike yesterday. A blast. I went to a couple places I'd never been to, so I really enjoyed that. We're going to go
All right, so it looks like that shot froze. That is a look at Governor Josh Stein, and here's a beautiful look over Asheville. Again, Governor Josh Stein is there. Again, we're approaching 1 year since Hurricane Helene devastated that area, and as Governor Stein said, Western North Carolina is open for business, and this has been a theme. I remember when we got to the 6 month mark since Helene, and a lot of businesses there were saying, "Hey, we are open for business. Come here." So again, a part of that tourism effort is Governor Stein promoting Western North Carolina. Let's take a listen back in. It looks like we get the shot back.
Make sure that we, as a state, are approaching the recovery in the right way. And so it was great that the chancellor hosted us, and it was wonderful to be on campus. The pre-orientation kids walking around, and of course that was adorable to see. I'm going to be at AB Tech, I think, on Wednesday night for an event there. I know that they're in the middle of, I was at Pratt & Whitney earlier this morning, and a number of the workers at Pratt & Whitney doing very advanced manufacturing have come out of our community college system at AB Tech. And the training, the ability to translate skills learned in the classroom to a good paying job, an advanced manufacturing job, is incredibly exciting. And that's what our institutions of higher learning afford us. We need to continue to do better. Secretary Lilly is chairing a council on workforce and apprenticeships to identify ways that we can improve on what we've already doing very well in North Carolina. We want to be the best state for workforce development in this entire country. And as you all know, last week we were incredibly honored that CNBC ranked North Carolina the #1 best state for business in this country. And one of the ways we have achieved that designation 3 of the last 4 years is because of our people, our workforce.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you for being here.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Governor Josh Stein just wrapping up a press conference. Theme of it, rebuilding after Helene. The governor promoting tourism there in Asheville. That is a beautiful shot of Asheville.
Nice day to be in the mountains.
Yes. Again, a big theme has been, hey, we are open for business. Western North Carolina is here. Businesses want you to come out. So that is a beautiful look, and that is the purpose of Governor Josh Stein's visit as we approach 1 year since Helene. All right, we want to shift now to Lexington, Kentucky, where following up on a deadly shooting at a church there in Lexington, the coroner identifying the shooter recently. 2 women were actually killed in a multi-scene shooting in Lexington, Kentucky at Richmond Road Baptist Church. Let's take a listen into this press conference where we are getting updates from Lexington Police.
Lexington has an absolutely tremendous law enforcement agency in the Lexington Police Department, and the Kentucky State Police is proud to get to work alongside of them, and they were tremendously helpful throughout this investigation yesterday. I'd be remiss to not say that, Kentucky State Police, we understand that this incident at the church, I cannot imagine what those folks are going through, and we certainly grieve with the family of the victims. We grieve with the church family, this small knit community. We understand that they all probably were very close to one another, and you can't put into words how terrible the situation was for them. And we at the Kentucky State Police, we want to let you know that we grieve with you. I believe that's all I have at this time. I can try to take a few questions with knowing in mind that I'm going to be limited to pretty much what I've already said here. Yes, ma'am.
So did troopers have eyes on House from the Terminal Drive stop to the carjacking to the older Terminal Church?
I don't have that specific information. That will probably be something that comes out through the investigation. As you can imagine, we have 2 scenes going all the way across Lexington, and in the middle of which, he stole a vehicle. So there's going to be some time for us to figure out all those details.
Why was the license plate triggered? Was the vehicle he was in stolen the first one on Terminal Drive, or what triggered that license plate?
I don't have specific information. Again, it's kind of there's a lot of information. Obviously, our trooper's in the hospital, so we're going to give him time to deal with his injuries before we go into that part of the investigation. But we'll get that information as soon as we can release it. Yes, sir.
Sergeant, you said House has open warrants. His family members said there's a history of mental illness there, drug problems. Should he have had a gun?
I'm not going to speculate as to why he had a gun. If he had, obviously he had a firearm because of what we know, but I can't speculate as to how he got that.
What kind of weapon was it?
Not prepared to release that information at this time.
All right, we're going to wrap this up, and again, going forward, Kentucky State Police will be leading the investigation, handling the entire investigation, and any information will be coming from them, and any inquiries should be going towards them. Thank you.
All right, so that press conference there, updates on the church shooting there in Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, just wrapping up. We'll shift now to Washington, D.C., where we have several different people speaking, including Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr., hosted a media availability along with the International Dairy Foods Association for a major announcement. Let's take a listen in.
To parents, there are learnings there for the medical establishment. There are also randomized controlled trials also raising these health concerns with the petroleum-based food dyes. Now, we believe in options, so that means we want natural dyes to be available to food makers and ice cream makers. Normally, every couple years, the FDA will spit out one natural food dye approval. But on the charge of Secretary Kennedy, we have made this a priority, and Kyle DeMontis, who's standing here in charge of the food program at the FDA, has made this a priority such that in the very short time we have been in office, we have now the 4th natural food dye from natural ingredients approved by the FDA. Today, I'm announcing that the FDA is approving Gardenia Blue as a natural food dye with natural ingredients. We believe in options, and we believe in incremental improvements in health. The sickness of American kids is not a willpower problem. It's not their fault. We can do things that will make the food supply healthier one step at a time. So with that, I just want to reemphasize that this is a renaissance moment in health in America, and part of that is rewriting the broken food and nutrition guidelines of the United States. No longer are we going to have a broken food pyramid and a continuation of a 70-year demonization of natural saturated fat that began with Dr. Ansel Keys. We are going to have dietary guidelines that are based on science, not based on medical dogma. So with that, I want to say thank you, and thanks for giving me a few minutes here.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McCary, another incredible warrior. And I know he recognized Kyle Diamante standing behind us, but I think Secretary Kennedy and Dr. McCary and I all agree that while we often get to stand up here and take a lot of credit, it's really the people who are working behind the scenes that make it happen. So a big shout out to Kyle and the entire team at HHS and USDA and FDA. So thank you. Right now, what a joy. Michael Dykes, CEO of the International Dairy Foods Association, a member of our Agricultural Policy Committee and a real driver in this effort. Please help me welcome the great Michael Dykes.
It is indeed a joy and a privilege to be here today. This is a great day for dairy, and it's a great day for Make America Healthy Again. I'm just overjoyed, to be honest with you. It's amazing. I want to thank Secretary Rollins, Secretary Kennedy for the opportunity to be here today to talk about the IDFA ice cream commitment and to thank all the wonderful people. I see Dana Cole who put hours and hours into, as well as my team, in organizing this and planning this. So thank you so much. I also want to say a thank you to the dairy farmers who traveled from Michigan, Illinois, Idaho, and Indiana to be here with us today. Everything we do in dairy starts with the dairy farmer, from nutrition to delicious. Thank you. I know what it's like to be on a dairy farm. As a kid, having grown up milking cows, and as a dairy veterinarian, I've been there, I've seen it, I know your hard work, and I know your dedication. So thank you for all you do. This is a unique opportunity for IDFA. We represent the industry, the processing industry, and we're so happy with this voluntary industry-led commitment to ensure that our products are on the right side of public policy and on consumer choice. Back in 2022, we made a similar commitment that we would maximize the amount of sugar in flavored milk in schools, and I'm pleased to say that in the last decade we've reduced sugar 60% in American schools in flavored milk, which is the #1 product for children. Earlier this year, we made a commitment that we would eliminate the certified artificial colors. The company stepped forward that they would eliminate the certified artificial colors in dairy products sold in schools, milk, cheese, and yogurt. Another commitment that our industry stepped forward with the member companies coming forward and making those commitments. And today, it's about celebrating ice cream and honoring the history of ice cream in America by making sure that we continue to offer the products that consumers know and love. This announcement today represents over 40 individual ice cream companies. It's the single largest effort of its kind, and it's efforts like this that demonstrate how our dairy industry is different. Our dairy industry was built on families. Many of these processing organizations started off on a single farm with a creamery, and years and years and generations later, they've grown into major companies. It is the dedication, it's the hard work, it's the commitment that our industry is committed to doing right and serving nutritious, healthy products to all. So on behalf of all of them, I am grateful to be here today. I'm grateful to our IDFA members, all of our ice cream companies, all of the dairy farmers, and to Secretary Rollins and Secretary Kennedy for being such staunch champions of dairy. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well done. Well done. Thank you so much, Dr. Dykes. Next, Andy Jacobs, the CEO of Turkey Hill Dairy and chairman of the International Dairy Food Association's Ice Cream Board. After Andy finishes, we'll hear from a dairy farmer herself, Sam Schweppe from Indiana, who milks, I think, 95 cows. What a joy, Sam. You are the reason we're able to do all of this, you and whom you represent. And then we'll take questions from the press, just a few, and then we'll be scooping some ice cream. So with that, Andy, please join me at the podium. Thank you for being here.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Servant. Right now, you're watching a USDA presser on dairy. So have we heard from RFK Jr.? I don't believe we've heard from him.
I believe he spoke while our governor was speaking in Asheville. So
okay.
We maybe didn't hear him at that time.
Okay, so that's happening live. Up top is a look from our content partners there in San Antonio as more rain and more flooding there in Texas. A community that is trying to bounce back after flooding from 4th of July weekend. Below, we are waiting an update there in the Boston area, Boston, Massachusetts area. A deadly fire tore through an assisted living facility on Sunday night. A tragic situation there. It looks like it's about to start, but 9 people were killed and 1 person remains in the hospital in critical condition. It looks like they're setting up it. So we'll get to that momentarily, but for now, we want to come back out here in studio to a story. When it comes to politics here, I guess, in the Charlotte area, it's something that we always keep our eye on, obviously, and it's something that continues to evolve. And that's why we have Julie Kay to help us navigate everything in the political realm, and not only in Charlotte, but also in the state. Julie, thank you for your time.
You always start to laugh when you introduce me.
Because
stuff keeps happening.
Stuff keeps happening. And one of the things that keep happening is things within Charlotte City Council.
Sure.
Krista Bakari. Mm-hmm. I think people are familiar with her, but just to give you an idea of what she does. So she was the wife of former Charlotte City Council member Tariq Bakari, but also, and I just learned this, I didn't know she was a former North Carolina House candidate at one point.
Correct.
But she has filed for the District 6 seat.
Yeah.
And you caught up with her. What did you guys talk about?
Well, we talked about a lot of things. It was Of course, as you mentioned, she's a familiar face. She's not held office before. Mm-hmm. This would be, if she's elected, her first time in office. But she's been involved in a lot of these big discussions, especially about Charlotte City Council. So she mentioned 3 things that we can get into that she's making a central part of her campaign. Public safety, transportation, of course, and then she mentioned transparency. And that's where this kind of all comes to a head. You mentioned Tariq Bakari. Her husband had filled that seat until earlier this year. He left to join the Trump administration. He and their children joined her to file today. She had a big group of friends and family there watching her sign all the documents. But that is what makes this seat interesting. She says, all this stuff that happened with City Council, the payout to CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings, kind of the drama over transparency and the reasoning behind that payout happened weeks after Tark left. So she said explicitly, if Tark was here, I don't believe any of this would have happened. So if I'm elected, transparency is the #1 goal for making sure stuff like this doesn't fly under the radar once again.
Hey, you talked about it. You laid it out, a few things that you hit on, one of them being public safety. What specifically did she talk about as far as public safety?
Well, I mean, she mentioned this weekend in Uptown was a prime example. Unfortunately, another example of reasons that public safety needs to be a top priority for Charlotte. She said she wants more, kind of on that same vein of transparency, more answers from our leadership. She said, I want to talk to this General Assembly at the state level. I want to talk to our DAs at the county level. So it sounds like she kind of wants a more oversight throughout the Charlotte government system. And this weekend, the violence there, unfortunately, another example for her.
Was hit on transit.
Yeah.
I think that's another contentious point.
Speaking of, yeah. So those, and the things that she mentioned, of course, are the things that I keep coming back in here to talk about because they are some of the biggest things that people have opinions on either side. The transit tax, of course, the 1 cent or 1% sales tax that is going to be up most likely on the ballot come November for Mecklenburg County residents. That is going to be a huge piece of this discussion. Of course, right now it's going through the county system, so I did get it confirmed that the county Board of Commissioners is going to speak about that and hopefully pass on the language to the Board of Elections by August 6th. Board of Elections tells me as long as it's in, before they start printing the ballots in September, they're good to go. So that is going to be something that Charlotte gets to decide. But she said we're talking about billions of dollars worth of economic impact and hundreds of dollars for Charlotte families that they're going to, potentially be losing each year to go towards this transit system. So she said, once again, oversight on how that money is spent and, of course, making it equitable for every piece of Charlotte, which is stuff we've been discussing this whole time. I think it'll be interesting to see what every candidate has to say, especially in those districts that have been, potentially left out of pieces of the transit plan that aren't getting the same, red line expansion, aren't getting light rail versus bus. So it'll be interesting to see. Of course, we've talked about this a million times, but she's now got 2 challengers officially already, and there's still a few more days left of filing. So interesting to see what people will say.
I was about to say, we got a few more days, more filings happening. Julie, they're keeping you busy. Is there any other points before I let you out of here that we missed that she addressed?
No, I don't think so, but I'm glad you mentioned other filings. I'll probably be back here again on Wednesday and Friday, which will be our last day of filing. It ends at noon. Wednesday is when we expect Tijuana Brown to refile in District 3, and that's also when we expect Mayor Vi Lyles to file. They're both going to have challengers already. Tijuana Brown, of course, that's interesting because of the federal indictment. She won pretty explicitly last time. She didn't really have a hard time. It'll be interesting to see if that federal indictment changes the way people turn out for her. And then the mayor, of course, former mayor Jennifer Roberts is floating a run potentially against Mayor Vi Lyles.
That post on X was very cryptic.
It was. Yeah. I think the level we're at now, she's considering it. I have not, her name's not on the list of people who have filed already. Yeah. So we shall see, but definitely makes those in particular interesting. So I'd say Wednesday and Friday are the big days to watch.
This is why we have Julie here, breaking it all down, sorting it all out. I'm trying to figure it out, but we have Julie here, so I think I got everything.
Yeah, get registered.
Get
That's
registered.
My last thing.
Julie K, thank you for your time. You're going to be in all the newscasts, I feel like, this evening. What, 4, 5, and 6? Or?
Don't manifest that.
Okay,
for me.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Don't give them ideas. 4, 5, and 11, actually.
4, 5, and 11. Julie K, you can catch her on WCNC Charlotte and here on WCNC Plus. Thank you for your time, Julie.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll shift back now. We were keeping an eye on this. This is there in the Boston area, Fall River, Massachusetts, a fire investigation underway, a very tragic situation there. We're getting updates from fire officials. 9 people were killed and 1 person remains in the hospital of critical condition. Fall River Fire Chief Jeffrey Bacon said in a press conference this morning, he said more than 30 people were taken to area hospitals and dozens of other people were rescued after a deadly fire tore through an assisted living facility on Sunday night. It looks like they're taking questions at this moment. Let's take a listen in.
Areas, break down why you have been alone in one spot.
Well,
I mean, I wasn't here last night, but to answer your first question, when there's people hanging out the windows, the first order of business is to get them out of the building so that they don't jump, right? That's the first order of business. When you don't have adequate staffing, that takes away from the fire suppression efforts, which is to run a hose line and try to get water on the fire. So that's what we had here last night. A lot of our efforts went into effecting rescues. More and more people were at the windows. Effecting a rescue over a ground ladder is very labor intensive and risky. So last night, you know, what we saw was the need exceeded the amount of resources that we had, the amount of manpower that we had on scene. That's why people came in off duty and tried to help. That's why, you know, the firefighters that were here were exhausted by their own admission, and fair enough, this is a very labor-intensive job. We have, you know, about 70 people that live in that building. That's about 70 apartments that have to be searched under heavy smoke conditions, in some cases heavy fire conditions. So it was a very difficult search and rescue. And, you know, as Captain O'Regan mentioned, he came in off duty, so when he got there, he was by himself as other rescues were being infected, and those victims were being brought out to be transported to the hospital.
Was it just the poor staffing, or was it anything with this building in particular?
There are other contributing factors that I'm sure that the fire chief will address in due time. One obvious one was the fact that the city of Fall River doesn't maintain adequate staffing levels, like, for instance, the city of New Bedford right next door.
Is there a call for mutual aid? Did other cities come and help out or towns?
I turn that over to
mutual aid. Yeah, I believe that we had several communities, Tiverton, Somerset, Westport, might have had Swansea, covering the stations, but this scene was Fall River. But we did have a lot of mutual aid ambulances, and I will say this, a big thank you to the staff at St. Anne's Hospital, who shuttled patients directly from the scene directly to the hospital in wheelchairs, along with the EMS division of the fire department and the police officers as well. Quite a few of them also got transported for smoke inhalation because they were also actively engaged in rescue operations.
Michael, can you walk us through, you said you were at home.
Yes, sir.
You got here within 10 minutes.
Yep.
Why did you come here, and what did you do as soon as you got here?
I heard the call, and I knew the address, and they had an active fire inside of an assisted living, and they were already calling out multiple rescues. I was supposed to be working today, so I already had my stuff ready, and I just responded here. When I got here, what I saw was everyone overwhelmed, split between rescuing those that they could see and searching for those they couldn't see. And then there were crews that were actively engaged in fire suppression. The amount of people that we had, if you take 60 people, we have 30 firefighters on scene. That's 2 residents per firefighter. And we had to break the windows, ladder them, climb in, extricate them. Many of the people were non-ambulatory or unconscious.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there is a live press conference giving us updates on a tragic situation there in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Actually, Fall River to be specific. 9 people dead, 1 person in critical condition after an assisted living fire there on Sunday night. We'll go back to that in moments, but we want to break in with some breaking news here on Live Impact News. This is a look at the Sheriff's Office website. So we just got this information in, did some more digging and vetting on it, but basically just to give you a quick rundown of what's happening, former York County Sheriff arrested. All right. Former York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson was arrested by South Carolina Highway Patrol. Tolson was booked into the York County Detention Center on July 14th at 11 a.m. He was later released, and this is a video of Tolson from years past that we have, but he was later released on bond. The agency responsible for the investigation is the South Carolina Highway Patrol. So we are working to get more information, and we checked to see. I know he was posted on bond. We were checking to see if, what those charges and what he was arrested for is listed. We haven't been able to find that so far, so we're still digging. I'm just going to say this out loud. I wonder if South Carolina Highway Patrol has any sort of information on arrests that we can kind of look into.
Yeah, what we know for sure, Nick, is that our newsroom is crawling for more information right now, checking with these two agencies and any other potential agencies, so we can bring those updates as soon as we have them.
Okay. I just want to reiterate to what we have right now, the information from York County Sheriff's Office. Former York County Sheriff arrested. Former York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson was arrested by South Carolina Highway Patrol. Tolson was booked into the York County Detention Center this morning, actually at 11 a.m. Yeah, just hours ago. He was later released on a bond. The agency responsible for this investigation is the South Carolina Highway Patrol. Again, this is file video of former Sheriff Tolson. As James just mentioned, as soon as we get more information on this, we will make sure to update you on why he was arrested. Some of the questions that we still have, I'm just being transparent about this. Some of the questions that we still have on why he was arrested, the circumstances surrounding that, we will provide that here for you, not only on our website and our digital platforms, but here on WCNC Plus, which, yes, is also a digital platform. Let's get back now to this press conference that is continuing. Again, tragedy there in Fall River, Massachusetts, as a deadly fire tore through an assisted living facility on Sunday night. 9 people were killed and 1 person remains in the hospital. Again, this press conference happening right now. Let's take a listen in.
They did. But as you know, time matters. And as the exposure to the smoke, people become unconscious, the CO takes over their bodies, and unfortunately they die if we don't get to them in time. And that's why time matters. That's why we have to have adequate staffing on the apparatus responding to these fires.
How long have you been warning the city about staffing issues?
I believe this is something going on for decades.
It's been a pressing issue for many decades. Closures of companies, cutting back on staffing, reducing staffing. It's a slow, gradual process where the city balances the budget on public safety, and we find it completely unacceptable. I would ask the mayor, to what cost a human life? To what cost 9?
Now, what changes do you think you need to see to increase the staffing, whether it's recruitment, budgeting, benefits? What do you think the city can do to help fix that problem?
Find the money. Government is awfully good at wasting money on nonsensical projects when they should be putting it towards life safety. Again, what price does a life have?
Real quick. The mayor can decide tonight to staff this company, this city properly. He can order the chief tonight to put 4 firefighters on every piece of apparatus in the city, and it would be done.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Sure. Have you had a chance to process last night, this morning? How you doing?
I was feeling pretty sick all day, so, and I'm working overtime tonight, so I'll hydrate a little and back at it.
And your fellow firefighters, can you talk a little bit about working together out here and what you guys did working together since you were out here?
Yeah, I mean, when I got here, these guys had done an unbelievable amount of work, just a tremendous amount of work, and these guys were really beat up, and they were making all kinds of rescues out windows, coming down stairways, so they had done such an unbelievable amount of work when I got here. That's why most of them were just completely spent. I get all the credit in the world for the guys that showed up and just saw this horrific scene. Like, it must have been awful.
You mentioned some of the challenges, from the air conditioners to the fact people that you were dealing with here. So you had to overcome a lot then, maybe just a normal fire.
Yeah, the ladder they put up, I had to push the air conditioner in, take the window out, and then just kind of dive in. But there were a lot of air conditioners, and the windows kind of screwed in.
And the mobility of people, that, for many people, you mentioned there was a challenge of, making sure that people could get out of the building safely, them being able to walk on their own. I know nurses will say that, their biggest fear is a fire at an assisted living facility or a nursing home.
There's a lot of disabled people here. By the time I showed up, anybody that was able-bodied that was already out. The people that I came across in the apartments I were on the floor, completely covered with soot and unconscious.
Are you guys able to say whether the sprinklers were going off when you entered the building?
I don't know, but I'm not going to comment anything that's an investigation worthy.
A assuming that you probably can't answer this, but any indication of what started the fire?
I can't even venture a guess.
You know where, maybe?
I don't even, I came in, I went to the B side of the building, and that's kind of where I kind of check things out later, but that's way out of my scope.
Can you say and spell your name?
Frank, F-R-A-N-K, O'Regan, O-R-E-A-G-A-N.
Any position in the fire department?
I'm the captain of the heavy rescue company for another 12 days or something like that. I'm retiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still, one more piece I want to identify. The National Institute of Standards and Technology studied staffing of fire companies, and they showed that the difference between staffing a fire company with 3 firefighters versus 4 firefighters was a difference of 25% in efficiency of achieving the task they were assigned. So that's a reduction in time, that's a reduction in ability to rescue people, and that's what we saw here last night. That's why we want this problem in Fall River fixed by the mayor.
We've seen a lot of community outpour today in terms of clothing drives, food drives, things like that. Is there anything that the community can do to help all of you, whether it's, advocating for that staffing?
Yeah, I would say call the mayor and tell him to staff the city properly. And say a prayer for those people that died last night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that news conference just wrapping up there in Fall River as 9 people are dead, 1 in critical condition after a fire at assisted living facility there in Fall River. And as James pointed out, you didn't hear him on the mic, but as he pointed out during the press conference, this is more about staffing and there being a shortage of firefighters there related to this incident and sort of what they're dealing with. So, again, that is the latest there in Fall River, Massachusetts. We want to turn back now to breaking news that we just got our hands on earlier. Former York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson, you see him right here on your screen, this is file video, was arrested and booked this morning at 11 a.m. That's according to York County Sheriff's Office. We do have a photo, his mugshot, that we just got in to take a look. So we just got information. Where did we get this affidavit from, you guys? I'm afraid to close out of this. Do we know where we got this affidavit?
Our newsroom provided it back here to our Impact studio, and we can go ahead and put it on the screen, Nick, and see what some of the details are. But this is the arrest warrant.
Okay. All right. So here's what we have. So according to this, on July 13th in York County, Kevin Robert Tolson, that's his name, did commit the crime of traffic and striking fixtures on or adjacent to a highway and failure to report. This was on Airport Road in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So basically, according to this, his vehicle did hit a telephone pole and fence, causing damage. And then he fled the scene, but was identified during a police investigation. Did I give a good summary of that? Did I miss anything on this?
That sounds right.
Okay. Just wanted to double check with the team to make sure. So here's what we have. Again, he is the offense is him striking a fixture which laid out a telephone pole and causing damage to a fence, and then leaving the scene. So again, according to the York County Sheriff's Office, he was booked this morning at 11 a.m. This is a new mugshot that we just got into our newsroom. This incident happened on Airport Road in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Again, Tolson, the former sheriff there in York County. This is a look at the arrest warrant that we were able to get our hands on about what happened. It details, it gives us obviously more insight, because when we first got the information from the New York County Sheriff's Office, we didn't even know why he was arrested, but we knew that he was arrested and he was booked. But again, striking a fence and a telephone pole and leaving the scene, but was booked this morning, and this happened on Airport Road in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Can we have a map up that we want to show you? So this is give you a general area of where this happened. Airport Road, that's in York County, right there in Rock Hill, and this is where the arrest warrant states that this incident happened. Again, according to this, he was identified during the police investigation before he was booked into the York County Detention Center. So again, this is a developing story. As soon as we get more information, as soon as we get anything, we want to bring it to you here on Live Impact News, as we always do here on WCNC Plus. This came in, and within a few minutes, we turned it around and got you the information, got you the latest of what we have. So this is the latest on this story involving former York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson, arrested in York County. He has posted bond, according to the York County Sheriff's Office. So again, we will continue to follow that story as soon as we can. Let's turn our attention now to the forecast. Start of the week. It's hot outside. It's just summer in the Carolinas, you guys. I feel like that was an evil laugh on my part. Promise that's not an evil laugh. But it's hot outside. It's humid. It's all the things. We always have the potential of storms with it being so hot and humid. So let's turn it now to Majestic Storm, who is tracking the forecast. Let's take a listen in.
Well, good Monday afternoon. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. We're off to a beautiful start to our new week. Temperatures this afternoon are going to be hot again, and we're still watching for kind of that typical summertime weather pattern still. Some isolated thunderstorms and showers will be possible today and nearly every single day in my 7-day forecast. Near normal temperatures with daytime highs rising mainly into the low to mid 90s all week long. But remember, once you add in the humidity, it's going to feel just a little hotter than that. Flood risk, we'll be keeping an eye out for that, because if any of those storms do develop, they could bring that brief heavy downpour that could lead to some fast flooding. Yesterday it was a hot Sunday. We topped off at 97 degrees, and today we're forecasting 94, so a little bit cooler, but bottom line, it's going to feel hot for just about everyone, unless you're lucky enough to live up in the mountains. Look at this, a nice sunny day with daytime highs rising mainly into the upper 70s and low 80s. 78 degrees today in Blowing Rock as we head towards the foothills. A little hotter with low 90s from Lenore out towards Hickory. Once we bring it back home out towards the Charlotte area, remember 94 for us, 94 for Gastonia as well as Shelby, 92 for your forecasted high today in Lincolnton. And then out there towards the Sandhills, we have 93 in Monroe and 94 in Rock Hill. Those are our actual air temperatures, but once you add in the humidity this afternoon, I told you it's going to feel even hotter. It's going to feel like we're back into the upper 90s, so make sure you do find a nice way to stay cool. If you are going to be out in the elements, make sure you're reapplying a lot of that sunblock today and staying extra hydrated. Overnight lows tonight only dropping down into mainly the low 70s. Cooler out there in Boone. It's going to feel nice at 63, but we're not getting a lot of that cooling overnight to allow for a lot of that relief. And you know what? We have still some major heat on the way. So far, we've seen 90-degree temperatures over the last 7 days, and as you can see, over the next 10 days, we have multiple heading our direction. A high of 94 to kick off our new work week. Temperatures slip down into the lower end of the 90s tomorrow, Wednesday, and then we start to climb back up. Look at Sunday, a high of 96 degrees again. But with that, each and every day we'll watch for a pop-up shower or thunderstorm starting today, and that'll continue even straight into the weekend. So make sure you're just paying close attention to the forecast, especially if you plan on being out on any body of water. Here's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Still a whole lot of sunshine for a lot of us, but that heat and humidity, you know how it goes. It provides fuel for possible storms. And notice the storms will be very isolated. If it impacts the Charlotte metro area, I think it'd be between about 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And with that, we could see that heavy downpour, some gusty winds, frequent lightning. May even see a pop-up thunderstorm throughout the overnight hours. That's early tomorrow morning. Heading out the door, though, tomorrow is going to be beautiful. We'll have plenty of sunshine, and then as we're heading later into our Tuesday afternoon and evening, we'll start to see some storms move in from the mountain locations and then track southeast. In addition to that, though, big picture perspective, we're keeping our eyes on the tropics. This area of low pressure expected to form out there in the Gulf, and this could be our next name storm. The National Hurricane Center still has this area shaded in yellow as that next area of interest where we could see that storm form, mainly impacting the coast of Florida, even back towards Louisiana, saying over the next 2 days, a 10% chance for that to actually form, but over the next 7 days, we could see a 30% chance for that next storm to form. 7-day forecast, though, back home, not looking too bad. Very summer-like each and every day, at least hitting 90 degrees. 94 is our high today, feeling like we're into the upper 90s this afternoon. About a 40% chance for showers and storms, especially this afternoon and evening as those clouds continue to spread across the area. Hope you have a great week ahead. Stay close to WCNC.
All right, folks, here you are coming up on the top of the hour in just a couple of moments. I'm Vanessa Rufus, taking over for Nick Sturdivant here in the live Impact News studio. We got a couple of headlines to get to over the next hour, and of course, any new breaking information that comes into the newsroom. Wanted to, of course, bring you to a feed that we're seeing right now. Is this out of Massachusetts, did I hear you say, Jeb? Okay, let's bring you there. Right now, we're listening in regarding a very serious fire. As you can see, unfortunately, a deadly fire. Let's listen into the latest update.
And I will say this, a big thank you to the staff at St. Anne's Hospital who shuttled patients directly from the scene, directly to the hospital in wheelchairs, along with the EMS division of the fire department and the police officers as well. Quite a few of them also got transported for smoke inhalation because they were also actively engaged in rescue operations.
Michael, can you walk us through? You said you were at home.
Yes, sir.
You got here within 10 minutes.
Yep.
Why did you come here, and what did you do as soon as you got here?
I heard the call, and I knew the address, and they had an active fire inside of an assisted living, and they were already calling out multiple rescues. I was supposed to be working today, so I already had my stuff ready, and I just responded here. When I got here, what I saw was everyone overwhelmed, split between rescuing those that they could see and searching for those they couldn't see. And then there were crews that were actively engaged in fire suppression. The amount of people that we had, if you take 60 people, we have 30 firefighters on scene. That's 2 residents per firefighter. And we have to break the windows, ladder them, climb in, extricate them. Many of the people were non-ambulatory or unconscious. So each one took in the air conditioners that screwed into the windows that we couldn't get out. Each one of them took a significant amount of time to extricate them from the building itself. And like I said, 40 minutes, and we were still actively finding victims in an active scene. And that was due largely to manpower.
What was it like to be inside that building, and did you ever think twice about going in?
Well, seeing as I didn't have any turnout gear and I didn't have any breathing apparatus, it was smoky. For quite a few of us that went in there that didn't have anything, and basically you do what you have to do. I didn't have time to go get the stuff, and we didn't have any extra stuff, so we did what we had to do.
And then did you realize at a certain point, I have to get out, the smoke was just too much?
Yeah. Besides, the chief told us, you've eaten enough smoke. Get out. Get out. Go take a break. Both us, me, Captain O'Regan, and quite a few other guys here, all the same. We all ate the same amount of smoke, and we all did the same amount of stuff. None of us stood out as being more heroic than the others. We all did the best we could to try to effectuate a positive outcome at this scene.
How are you doing today?
A little hoarse, a little tired, but I'm okay. My main concern is with the guys here that have to experience this, the largest loss of life in Massachusetts in 40 years, and the families and the victims. I'm more concerned about them than I am myself.
Were any of you among the injured firefighters, and have you been in contact with any of those who were injured, and how they're doing?
I believe they were all minor injuries. Well, one of our members came by this morning, and he got 12 stitches to his hand from a glass window when he was trying to extricate it, and a lot of smoke inhalation.
Are you able to say who called 911 and when that call came in?
That I wouldn't know.
What was the first people that got here? What time did they get here?
That would be up to the chief. I'm not specific on times and stuff. I know what time I got here.
Can you walk through again the issue with the staffing? Like how many folks were here initially, and then I guess what ideally that number would be?
We had actually the entire city. Every piece of apparatus, I believe, was here.
There should have been. If this was the city of Fall River, I mean, I'm sorry, if this was the city of New Bedford, or Boston, or Worcester, with 4 firefighters, there would have been 40 total firefighters initially on scene before any off-duty firefighters showed up. There were only 32. Those additional 8 firefighters, in my opinion, would have affected rescues, would have saved lives, and I don't think I'm overstating that probably 5 more people could have lived had those 8 firefighters been on scene, been able to effect rescues if they were here initially on the apparatus where it should be staffed to.
Eventually, more folks did show up with mutual aid, though, right?
They did, but as you know, time matters, and as the exposure to the smoke, people become unconscious, the CO takes over their bodies, and unfortunately they die if we don't get to them in time. And that's why time matters. That's why we have to have adequate staffing on the apparatus responding to these fires.
How long have you been warning the city about staffing issues?
I believe this is something going on for decades.
It's been a pressing issue for many decades. Closures of companies, cutting back on staffing, reducing staffing. It's a slow, gradual process where the city balances the budget on public safety, and we find it completely unacceptable. I would ask the mayor, to what cost a human life? To what cost 9?
Now, what changes do you think you need to see to increase the staffing, whether it's recruitment, budgeting, benefits? What do you think the city can do to help fix that problem?
Find the money. Government is awfully good at wasting money on nonsensical projects when they should be putting it towards life safety. Again, what price does a life have?
Let me answer that real quick. The mayor can decide tonight to staff this city properly. He can order the chief tonight to put 4 firefighters on every piece of apparatus in the city, and it would be done.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Have you had a chance to process last night, this morning? How you doing?
I was feeling pretty sick all day, so, and I'm working overtime tonight, so I'll hydrate a little and back at it.
And your fellow firefighters, can you talk a little bit about working together out here and what you guys did working together since you were out here?
Yeah, I mean, when I got here, these guys had done an unbelievable amount of work, just a tremendous amount of work, and these guys were really beat up, and they were making all kinds of rescues out windows, coming down stairways, so they had done such an unbelievable amount of work when I got here. That's why most of them were just completely spent. I get all the credit in the world to the guys that showed up and just saw this horrific scene. Like, it must have been awful.
You mentioned some of the challenges, from the air conditioners to the fact the people that you were dealing with here. So you had to overcome a lot than maybe just a normal fire.
Yeah, the ladder they put up, I had to push the air conditioner in, take the window out, and then just kind of dive in. But there were a lot of air conditioners and the windows kind of screwed in.
And the mobility of people, that, for many people, you mentioned that there was a challenge of, making sure that people could get out of the building safely, them being able to walk on their own. I know nurses will say that, their biggest fear is a fire at an assisted living facility or a nursing home.
There's a lot of disabled people here. By the time I showed up, anybody that was able-bodied that was already out. The people that I came across in the apartments were on the floor, completely covered with soot and unconscious. I don't know, but I'm not going to comment anything that's an investigation-worthy kind of.
Assuming that you probably can't answer this, but any indication of what started the fire?
I can't even venture a guess.
You know where?
I don't even. I came in and I went to the B side of the building, and that's kind of where I kind of check things out later, but that's way out of my scope.
Can you say and spell your name?
Frank, F-R-A-N-K, O'Regan, O''R-E-A-G-A-N.
And your position in the fire department?
I'm the captain of the heavy rescue company for another 12 days or something like that. And then I'm retiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one more piece I want to identify. The National Institute of Standards and Technology studied staffing of fire companies, and they showed that the difference between staffing a fire company with 3 firefighters versus 4 firefighters was a difference of 25% in efficiency of achieving the task they were assigned. So that's a reduction in time, that's a reduction in ability to rescue people, and that's what we saw here last night. That's why we want this problem in Fall River fixed by the mayor.
We've seen a lot of community outpour today in terms of clothing drives, food advocating for that staffing.
Yeah, I would say call the mayor and tell him to staff the city properly. And say a prayer for those people that died last night. Thank you.
Folks, just wrapping up this live briefing from fire officials in Fall River, Massachusetts, where sadly, as you heard, 9 people died after a fire happened at an assisted living facility, trapping folks inside. We are also hearing at least 30 people injured in that fire. And you heard some of the officials talking about some of the issues with staffing. This is an area that's about an hour south of Boston. It's just southeast of Providence, Rhode Island. You heard the fire officials talking about the fact that they need more people. We've heard reports here that some of the response to this assisted living facility actually entailed 30 off-duty firefighters, and there were also reportedly police who were trying to help save folks as well, breaking down doors and actually going and carrying residents who were trapped outside of that building. 5 firefighters injured in this response, and we're just hearing actually were released today from the hospital. More updates on that to come. Meantime, we want to talk about larger relations here, international relations, U.S. and Germany. In fact, today, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius is set to meet with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to talk about supplies going to Ukraine, specifically American arms. And we also know that Pistorius is actually going to discuss Berlin, specifically their offer to pay for American Patriot air defense systems for Ukraine. Let's listen into this earlier discussion.
Mr. Minister, I wanted to welcome you and your team to the Pentagon. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to host you. And first, I want to recognize the incredible support the German government gives to our troops in your country stationed there. Thank you. For many years, the partnership and friendship in that regard. So many folks at this table and have served there and had an opportunity to spend time in your beautiful country, including me very briefly. But yes, absolutely. Yeah, about 10 years ago, more now. But thank you. And also want to recognize just the longstanding partnership that we've had. And especially, we've gotten to know each other, Mr. Minister, over a number of meetings now. And I think we've seen incredible progress inside NATO, and with Germany taking the lead on that. Upfront commitment to your spending, commitment to European leadership. And so I want to commend you and thank you for that, to include the contributions and the partnership that we'll continue to undertake, especially given the approach the President is taking. We just talked about this morning at the White House. So look forward to further partnership. And you know, you're also not just Patriot systems, but what you're doing in Lithuania with your brigade and 5th generation fighters really leading forward. So thank you. Look forward to a strong discussion today, and welcome to the Pentagon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Secretary Hegseth. Dear Pete, let me begin by saying it is a privilege to meet you at the Pentagon today. I very much look forward to continuing our close cooperation. And you mentioned it, Germany and the United States share a long-standing, deep and trusted partnership, a partnership that strengthens not only our two nations, but also benefits the entire transatlantic alliance. Time and again, this bond has proven its value and resilience in the face of unprecedented security challenge. In response to the shifting security landscape, Germany and our European allies have taken significant steps to reinforce the European contributions within NATO. We have committed to substantially increasing our defense investments, reaching 5% of our GDP by 2035. According to our budgetary planning, we will achieve 3.5% of our GDP on core defense spending by 2029 already. So we are determined to assume greater responsibility for Europe's deterrence and defense, while recognizing that the contribution of the United States of America remains indispensable to our collective security. Our brigade, you mentioned it, in Lithuania will be operational by 2027. And beside bilateral topics, we will have the opportunity today to discuss some of the key security challenges we face together, strengthening NATO and enhancing our collective defense capabilities, which is really a relevant challenge, maintaining our steadfast support for Ukraine in its courageous fight for freedom and sovereignty, and addressing regional security dynamics in key regions like the Middle East and the Indo-Pacific. So let me assure you once more, Germany will continue to play a strong role and a reliable role in the alliance. We are firmly committed to fair burden sharing and to building a more capable, more reliable, more resilient Europe within NATO. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Press. That's all. We're leaving. Press, we're leaving now. Thank you, Press. We're leaving now. Press, we're leaving. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Press.
Thank you.
What other weapons?
Thank you.
What other weapons will?
Thank you, Press.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many pages?
Okay, so just a little bit of that earlier meeting. We want to check in now with the U.S. Senate, where we're seeing some discussions happening on the floor. Let's listen in right now here on Live Impact News.
And our farmers rely on this technology, and it's very, very important that the FCC looks at what they can do to help promote agriculture across this country. So again, I'd urge support of the legislation.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1618 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended and the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1770.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 123, H.R. 1770. A bill to direct the Consumer Product Safety Commission to establish a pilot program to explore the use of artificial intelligence in support of the mission of the Commission, and to direct the Secretary of Commerce and the Federal Trade Commission to study and report on the use of blockchain technology and tokens, respectively.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Latta, and the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous matters in the record on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of H.R. 1770, the Consumer Safety Technology Act, led by the gentlelady from Indiana's 9th District, the gentleman from Florida's 9th District, and the gentlelady from Massachusetts. This legislation will require the Consumer Product Safety Commission to establish a pilot program to explore the use of artificial intelligence in support of its product safety efforts. It would also direct the Secretary of Commerce and Federal Trade Commission to study and report on the consumer protection applications of blockchain technology. Technologies such as AI and blockchain are revolutionizing the private sector with improvements in efficiency, security, and transparency. We need to make sure the federal government is reaping the same benefits and using technology to its advantage. This bill would not only make these agencies more effective, but would protect consumers in the process. I urge my colleagues to join with me in voting in favor of H.R. 1770, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak in support of H.R. 1770, the Consumer Safety Technology Act. Our consumer protection agencies play a critical role in ensuring unsafe products do not enter the U.S. market. Advancements in technology, especially as it relates to artificial intelligence, have the potential to help alleviate the stress that some of these agencies may face in being underfunded and understaffed. H.R. 1770 would require the Consumer Product Safety Agency to stay up to date on new and emerging technologies by integrating them into their daily agency functions. It also requires the Federal Trade Commission to study blockchain technologies and tokens. Both the CPSC and the FTC do important work to protect all Americans from dangerous products, including emerging technologies. While this bill will help assist in these efforts, it's no replacement for strong, independent, and bipartisan agencies or proper funding and staffing levels. So I hope, in addition to supporting this bill, that my Republican colleagues will finally speak up against President Trump's dangerous attempts to weaken or even dismantle these critical agencies. But I want to commend Representative Soto for his leadership on this issue and encourage my colleagues to support H.R. 1770. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve the balance of my time.
Okay. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
I'd yield now, Mr. Speaker, such time as he may consume to the sponsor of the bill, Mr. Soto of Florida, a member of our committee.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of H.R. 1770, the Consumer Safety Technology Act. The bill directs the Consumer Product Safety Commission to launch a pilot program exploring the use of artificial intelligence so we could track injury trends, identify hazards, monitor recalls, and identify products not meeting importation requirements. See, the reality is the crooks are already using AI. The cops on the beat need to be able to use this too. And we also heard in committee that this could help make the CPSC more efficient by the use of this technology, and it's critical that we protect consumers. The bill also requires the Department of Commerce and other agencies to study blockchain technology in the context of consumer products and safety. Right now, blockchain is an exciting technology, new technology that can be used for data storage and helping AI to analyze major issues. In addition, it could also be in the digital currency form too. And so the next section also instructs that the FTC should report to Congress on its efforts to address unfair and deceptive trade practices related to tokens, aka digital currency, and make any recommendations to improve our federal agencies' ability to protect consumers and promote innovation. I'd like to thank Chair Latta, Ranking Members Pallone and Schakowsky, Representatives Houchin, Trahan, and Castor for joining me in this important legislation, and I urge them to all vote yes, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized. Okay. Reserves. Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We don't have any other speakers. If I'm prepared to close, if the gentleman is prepared.
Thank you.
New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would urge my colleagues to support this bill on a bipartisan basis. It's important from a consumer safety point of view, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As been pointed out, that the technologies are changing so rapidly, especially when we're looking at AI and blockchains, how they're revolutionizing the private sector because of the efficient security and transparency, and what we need to be doing on the federal government side at the same time. So I would urge my colleagues to support this legislation with an aye vote.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1770? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are yes.
The yeas and the nays.
Okay. The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1766.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 141, H.R. 1766. A bill to amend the National Telecommunications and Information Administration Organization Act to establish the Office of Policy Development and Cybersecurity and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Latta, and the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend the remarks and insert extraneous materials in the record on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 1766, the NTIA Policy Cybersecurity Coordination Act, led by the gentleman from California's 23rd District and the gentleman from California's 4th District. Cyber threats, whether originating from state actors, criminal organizations, or malicious hackers, pose significant risks to our national security, economy, and the privacy of our citizens. The increasing frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks, like we saw last year in the Salt Typhoon attack, underscore the urgency of addressing this ever-evolving challenge. The NTIA Policy and Cybersecurity Coordination Act bolsters our nation's cybersecurity posture by strengthening the coordination between the National Telecommunication and Information Administration, NTIA, and other relevant federal agencies. Additionally, the bill renames the existing NTIA Office of Policy Analysis and Development to the Office of Policy Development and Cybersecurity, and codifies the existing activities of the office. H.R. 1766 seeks to promote effective information sharing, collaboration, and response efforts established in the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act. The legislation also facilitates public-private partnerships to develop and implement cybersecurity policies relating to communication networks. By encouraging collaboration between government agencies and stakeholders, we can work together to address cyber threats and vulnerabilities more effectively. This bipartisan legislation passed the House of Representatives by voice vote in the last Congress. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1766, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
You're recognized.
And, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 1766, the NTIA Policy and Cybersecurity Coordination Act. Protecting our nation's communication networks is of vital importance to our national security, and this is particularly important now when a significant amount of our country's economic and social activity has moved online, and consumers are continuing to connect more devices to these networks every day. We therefore must build in safeguards into our country's communication networks to increase their safety and security while also promoting innovation and competition. So H.R. 1766 will help us achieve these goals. The bill authorizes the existing Office of Policy Analysis and Development at the NTIA and renames it the Office of Policy Development and Cybersecurity. It also codifies the responsibilities of NTIA in administering parts of the Secure and Trusted Communications Network Act and requires the office to coordinate and develop policy initiatives to enhance cybersecurity efforts with respect to our communications networks. The office will also be tasked with developing and analyzing
Folks, we're going to pivot away from these discussions happening in Congress right now to an earlier luncheon that happened, inviting, of course, you could see not only the president, as you'll see in just a moment, but also CEOs and business leaders. And this is supposed to be a discussion about faith and the economy. So it's also a call for investments for these CEOs to continue to invest in White House Faith Office. Let's listen to this earlier luncheon.
Hi, John. So we're really, that's a big thing. And we thought we had 4 deals, Howard, right, with Putin. Somehow they end and we get off the phone. Oh, that was a very nice conversation. And then he sends missiles into buildings someplace. I say, what was that all about? So anyway, so we're going to be doing that with NATO. And it's fully approved, fully done. And we'll send them a lot of weapons of all kinds, and they're going to deliver those weapons immediately to the site of the war, different sites of the war, and they're going to pay for 100% of them. This all was made possible by going from 2 to 5% a month ago when I went there. So, yeah. And those countries, those European countries, and I said, look, we have an ocean. It's not fair that we did, because under the Biden administration, we paid about 3.5 times more than they did. We were in for $350 billion. Got nothing for it. We were in for $350, and they were in for $100. So which really meant one thing, because you have great business leaders here. It meant very simply that they were better negotiators than our president was. But so this is a very important thing, and hopefully that will come to an end. At the end of 50 days, if we don't have a deal, then we're going to have to do, we have no choice but to do secondary tariffs. You call it secondary tariffs, which are pretty tough, which we don't want to have to do, but let's see what happens. But we thought we had a deal. Numerous times I'd get home, I'd say, First Lady, I had the most wonderful talk with Vladimir. I think we're finished. And then I'll turn on the television, or she'll say to me one time, wow, that's strange because they just bombed a nursing home. I said, what? So we don't like that. But I want to thank you all for being here, and welcome to the first ever White House Summit of Faith and Business Leaders. You're really some of the greatest business leaders in the country. When I looked at some of the names, I said, whoa, that's big stuff we have here today. In fact, before I was president, I would have been very intimidated, but now I'm president, so I don't have to. But today we celebrate the core values that built this country: and freedom, hard work, risk-taking, and above all, trust in Almighty God. You're very much into God in this room, and that's very nice. You're business leaders who believe strongly. We have some business leaders that don't believe strongly, and somehow you and I don't like them as much. But I want to thank Pastor Paula White. She's been my friend for a long time. And John, for convening this incredible group. You know, her husband's one of the most talented musicians in the world. Stand up, John. Stand up. See? I stole a couple of his songs for the rallies, and he never sued me, so I was very happy. But we all come from the same place, right? So it was great, and we appreciate it, John. Thanks as well to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's doing a fantastic job. He goes on television and he calms the market. I go on television, I rile the market, and I say, we better send him in there, Howard, right? And the market's become so calm and nice. So you're doing a good job, Scott. Thank you very much. You make any deals today? We got a lot of them, boy, I tell you, we have. But the best deal is just sending out the paper. You know, they keep saying, well, he hasn't made the deal. Oh, we made a number of deals. But why isn't he doing deals? Because the paper is better than any deal we can make. Do you understand? The people in this, Kevin, they asked you that question this morning. You were great this morning. But they said, well, when is he going to start making deals? The next time we could say, just no, every time he sends out a document that you have to pay 35% or 25% or 50%. Or in one case, 100%. Those deals, you can't beat those deals, but we're still willing to talk. And they all, literally every country wants to make a deal. We're in a good position. You would call it a position of strength. I don't talk that way because I'm a politician now, unfortunately. And I don't want to talk about strength. I just want to say we have to be treated fairly, because we were ripped off on trade and the military for, we protected other nations. Nobody paid us. Nobody did anything for us. Nobody helped us. And that's much different. NATO's a much different situation now. When I got in, I believe we were paying for 100% of NATO. And now they're paying, they went from 2%, but they were paying 1% to 5% that they're paying. That's a big difference. It's about $1 trillion difference. And they're wealthy, for the most part, wealthy countries. And some of them they're among the most powerful, among the wealthiest countries in the world. So they're going to start paying, and they want to pay. And we had a great meeting about 1 month ago. That set the stage for what happened here, but it's very important. So I want to thank Scott for being here. I want to thank Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. You are doing a good job, Howard. Am I right when I say I really don't want deals? I just want the paper to get sent? Right, it's true. I don't know if this is on television. Yeah, it's always on television. SBA administrator and a great person, cabinet member, a friend of mine for a long time, Kelly Loeffler. Kelly, you're doing great. She's small business, right? She only does small business, but when you add it all up, it's the biggest bank in the world by a factor of about 10, right? She's doing a great job. And director of the White House Faith Office, Jenny Korn, who's also amazing. Thanks, Jenny. From the earliest days of our republic, the steady compass of faith has guided the strong hands of American workers, builders, and entrepreneurs like really no other. Our country was founded by pilgrims and believers, and every generation since, Americans of faith have built our communities and forged new industries and enriched our country by millions and millions of people and ways. John D. Rockefeller, J.C. Penney, Charles Goodyear, Truett Cathy, and frankly, we have people I could name right in this room sitting here that their names are every bit as big as that. They were inspired by their love of God, and now the proud tradition continues with all of you. And this group reminds us, as a nation that prays is a nation that prospers. And you see that I think one of the reasons we went so bad is they really wanted to take God and religion out of your lives. And there was nobody to, look up to. There was just nobody. It was, we were freewheeling, and we can't freewheel. Now we have to bring religion back into the country, and we're starting to do that, I think, at a very high level, Paula, a very, very high level. You see churches are starting to fill up again. Under the Trump administration, America is prospering, and America is winning like never before. Our country is back. So I was in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and then a month ago we were in Europe with all of the NATO countries, European countries, and plus Canada. And almost everyone said almost the.
All right, folks, we're moving to a 3-box, and shortly after, we're going to move into a briefing that's set to start at any moment. But you could see we've added 2 new boxes. In the top right, you'll notice here this group. This is going to be a report that is highlighting all of the findings on this 1-year anniversary of the attempted assassination of President Trump at that campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. These are members of the Republican Study Committee. Looks like they've actually started to speak, so let's just go straight there right now.
When a gunman nearly assassinated President Trump. Tragically, he took the life of Corey Compatore and seriously wounded David Dutch and James Copenhaver. Yesterday, I returned to the Butler Farm Showgrounds, where I was with the president a year ago. I met with the Compatore family during a celebration of Corey's life. They are incredibly strong, and I know all of us on stage continue to send our thoughts and prayers to them as we seek more answers about what actually happened that day. Now, we're here today to highlight new resolution H.R. 571, which formally recognized the events of 2014 and July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. The resolution also condemns the rise in political violence we have seen across our nation over the last year. From the assassination attempts against President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, and West Palm Beach, Florida, to the attacks against Governor Josh Shapiro in April, and to the deadly attacks on the Minnesota state lawmakers just last month. Let's be clear. We must stand up together to oppose violence against our nation's leaders all across each party. And I want to thank my co-lead on the resolution, RSC Chairman August Pfluger from Texas. When we talk about this, though, we can have as many resolutions as we want to bring it forward. And I've heard person after person, politician after politician get up and say, I am absolutely appalled by the violence that's taking place in this country today. And we've got to stop using that type of language. And with 24 hours, they're out talking again about who should not be sitting in certain offices. So it's one thing to have a resolution. It's one thing to be resolved, the fact we're not going to keep talking like this. When I'm asking all our everybody that's in the Congress, everybody that's in elected office, please watch what you say. Don't start off saying we should never do this, and then within 24 hours go out and make statements again that incite people. That's a false lead. It's a false premise. Our resolution is an attempt to get people to speak the way they should speak. In America, the way we settle things is by votes. So it's my pleasure to be with all these people behind me today because they're all feeling the same way. And I'm going to introduce Dan Muser now. Dan and I sat beside each other in Butler, July 13th last year, and watched as the assassination attempt took place. I got to tell you, at first, nobody knew what was happening. It sounded like somebody was shooting off firecrackers. And then when we saw the president go down, we knew exactly what happened. We did not know that Corey Compatore had been seriously wounded and was going to die. We did not know that 2 other gentlemen were seriously wounded and are still recovering from those wounds. But today we are making an effort to make sure that we start speaking the right way in America. Mr. Muser.
Thank you, Mike. You got it, brother. Appreciate you. Well said, Representative Mike Kelly, my good friend from Pennsylvania. As he stated, I was at Butler on the July 13th, and we were there in October when our president insisted on going back. He asked me, what do you think about me going back? And I said, Mr. President, I advise against it. I was not supportive. I was more concerned about his safety. But his level of courage is, well, boundless. When the president was hit on July 13th, and we all couldn't help but really think the worst. But that certainly changed, as we all saw. At the moment, he lifted up security agents on his back, put his fist up, said, fight, 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 wiping blood from his face. And in so doing, he lifted everybody in that arena up, at the rally up. They began the chant of USA, USA. And I think he rose the entire nation up. And I think we saw that on the following November 5th. But the rhetoric in politics is out of control, right? I recently met with members of the Indivisible group up in my district, insisting I show up. Well, we had an hour meeting. I let it go to an hour and 40 minutes. But right at the very end, they said, one of them said, you know, you're a Nazi, and so is President Trump. Okay? Nazi, all right? We know what the Nazis did. When people are out there making such comments and elected officials, you know, some people believe them. They actually think that you might be that, and that hate speak turns into violence. Just this weekend, Vice President J.D. Vance and his family are at Disney World, cursed at, all kinds of foul language thrown at them. And Governor Newsom has to put something out saying, did you enjoy your time at Disney World? Okay? Governor Newsom is sick to do something like that and to act that way. And how about the ICE agents being demonized and attacked for doing their jobs? And elected officials are out there cheering it on. So there are too many Democrats, frankly, that are tolerating this, in fact, encouraging it. Not all by any means. My friends that are Democrats condemn it as well. But there's too many falsehoods. And we got a governor in Pennsylvania that does nothing but spew falsehoods. And again, people believe him, how certain measures are being taken that we're taking food out of hungry Pennsylvanians' mouths. Nothing could be further from the truth. And Brooke Rollins came up to Pennsylvania and pointed out the truth. So we have this resolution. It's about hate speech, because hate speech leads to violence. It's dangerous. We also are seeing a high level of a surge in anti-Semitic rhetoric. I mean, for crying out loud, I put out a post recently on Facebook, something positive about Israel. I literally got hundreds of basically threats and all kinds of other hate messages. So, look, we're not going to stop it all, but this resolution is about calling for an end to hateful rhetoric. It is about a resolution that solemnly making, answering, or recognizing the one-year anniversary of the attack on President Donald J. Trump. It honors Corey Compatore, who died shielding his family, and David Dutch and James Compatore, who are injured. And it also brings out the governor I just mentioned, Josh Shapiro, and some others that had we had our governor residence attacked. Okay, all of these things need to be condemned, and that's what this resolution is about. And I just applaud my good friend August Pfluger and my great friend Mike Kelly for setting all this up. Thank you very much. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Congresswoman Laurel Lee from the great state of Florida.
Thank you. 1 year ago, our nation witnessed a horrific act of violence, the attempted assassination of President Donald J. Trump. It was an attack on our president, on the families that were gathered there to hear him speak, and on the institutions that hold our democracy together. As a member of the bipartisan task force on the assassination attempt, I joined my colleagues to ask the hard questions. How did this happen, and what can we do to make sure that it never happens again? Our final report laid out clear recommendations, and since then, Congress has acted, improving threat detection systems, strengthening agency coordination, and expanding protections for officials. The Secret Service has also responded by updating its threat modeling and improving interagency protocols. But important questions remain, and so does our responsibility. I want to thank Chairman Kelly and Chairman Pfluger for introducing the resolution. It rightly honors the bravery of those who responded. It remembers Corey Comparator, who gave his life to protect his family, and uplifts the heroism that saved others. But this resolution is more than a remembrance. It is a call to action. Threats and attacks, whether against the president, a judge, a member of Congress, or ICE agents, are unacceptable. And to those who would commit these types of acts of violence, know this: the full force of federal law enforcement will find you, will stop you, and will hold you accountable under law. Political violence has no place in America, and we must do everything in our power together to ensure that it never happens again. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague from the state of Texas, Representative Brandon Gill.
Thank you, Laurel, and thank you all for being here. It was just a year ago yesterday that President Trump was in a rural Pennsylvania field, bucolic area, beautiful part of this country, when a deranged gunman tried to murder him. At the time, there were thousands of his supporters in the field looking for a message of hope from the president. A message that the forgotten Americans in this country will no longer be forgotten, that the people who have been ravaged by globalism and mass migration and fentanyl will have a champion in Washington. And meanwhile, leftists on the other side of the aisle were slandering that same then presidential candidate, saying that he is a threat to democracy, that he's a wannabe dictator, that he is literally Hitler, in their words. And some people on their side of the aisle take those words at face value, and they tried to assassinate him. Political violence has absolutely no place in this country, but unfortunately, this kind of rhetoric has continued. We hear our colleagues on the other side of the aisle demonizing the brave men and women who serve in ICE and in immigration facilities, saying that what they are doing is similar to the secret police, that they are being compared to the Gestapo. This is rhetoric that is not only deranged and wrong, but it has no place in a functioning democratic system. So we on this side of the aisle, and we hope that others will join us, reject this rhetoric. We reject political violence in all its forms. And we pray for this country and for its leaders and for our president, for their safety and for their well-being. So with that said, thank you all for being here, and I'd like to introduce the great Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and I'm grateful to stand up here with my colleagues. We've all joined together to denounce hate speech, political hate speech that has deadly consequences. A year ago, the world was outraged after they saw President Trump shot at the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, and we still mourn the life of Corey Comparator and pray for his family as well as the other victims that were shot. However, this is just another type of violence that goes on and on and on, whether it's state legislators in Minnesota, Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, or even me being one of the biggest targets of death threats in Congress, as well as my colleagues standing here with me. I'll receive them. This is a very serious situation, and it happens in many ways. It happens in the headlines. It happens in news clips. It happens in social media posts. It happens in campaign literature and emails. And it happens in rhetoric going across the aisle between Republicans and Democrats. There is no place for political violence, and the people that suffer the most are people like Corey Compertor and his family. It's also a major strain on our Capitol Police, and if you talk to Capitol Police, I encourage you, press, to talk to them. They are dealing with a massive amount of death threats for members of Congress, and they have limited resources. We would love to see their resources used here at the Capitol for visitors and safety for everyone. However, they are constantly having to investigate death threats that come for me and other members of Congress. Over the break, I spent time talking with the FBI about someone that delivered a syringe in my mailbox, and talked with them about other cases. And there's been multiple people convicted for pleading guilty to planning to kill me. But this goes across the aisle on both ways, and I think I'm really grateful to be standing here with my colleagues that are saying enough of this. And I'd also, I can't go without saying that God saved President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. God saved him, and he knows it, and he says it frequently all the time, and the American people know it. And we're very grateful for that. So with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague from Georgia, Representative Mike Collins.
Thank you, Congresswoman Green. And you know, it has been 1 year since they tried to kill our president. And I want to take just a quick moment to focus on what I call consequences and make two quick points. You know, the culture of lawlessness and violence, this didn't just start last year. Y'all, this started under the Obama administration when they decided to illegally investigate conservative groups, when they were out there demonizing Republicans who just simply wanted to follow the Constitution and make our country better. Then you fast forward to the Biden administration, who they put this on steroids and actually allowed the public to take part in this game. Example, Summer of Love, where rioters were out there burning police stations, assaulting officers, taking over our cities, where they were advocating to defund the men and women in blue who protect us. And they didn't just encourage it, y'all. They promoted it. Hey, they even paid for their bail. The other thing I want to make a point is, and I think Representative Green hit the nail on the head, y'all, we got a morality problem in this country. There's no value to the sanctity of life anymore. Socialist, woke politicians, they want to have people to look to the government for every answer they need. That's not what we don't look to the government. We're supposed to look towards God for our answers. What happened in Butler? That's an example of the consequences of this Democrat rhetoric. Well, you know what? I thank the good Lord for protecting President Trump. And I pray that we get back to the foundations of our country. With that, I'd like to call up Max Miller from the great state of Ohio. Thank you.
Thanks. It's great to be with all of you this afternoon. On Saturday, I woke up, and the first thing that I did is I called President Trump. Because I remember on that day just a year ago, I had called him that morning for a discussion right before he went to that rally, and it was very sobering for me. And he said, you know, hey, Maxie, how's it going? I said, going well, Mr. President. He just said, can I help you? And I just said, no. I said, thank you. Thank you for fighting, and thank you for being here, because on that day, that could have altered the trajectory of this entire country of where we are. President Trump is our 47th president. If that gentleman would have been successful, I don't know where we would have been today. And honestly, I don't care, because he's still standing and he is our president. And when you talk about political violence throughout this country and rhetoric and what it ensues, I know all of my colleagues have experienced it. I myself, just a few weeks ago, got ran off the road because some individual wanted to get my attention and he couldn't, and he decided to use his vehicle as a weapon. This legislation should be bipartisan in its nature, and it should be
Hey, folks, bear with us. Sorry, we're working on that feed. That, once again, you're seeing various Republicans speaking on this one-year anniversary. Okay, we're going to move away from the 3-box. Just lost that feed entirely. Speaking on the anniversary of the assassination attempt on President Trump at that political rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. If we can get back there, we will. You were seeing that 3-box earlier, though, so just to kind of preview what we might be looking ahead to in the next couple of moments, you were seeing in the top right of that box the update coming soon out of Texas regarding the severe storms. The governor there, Greg Abbott, is set to speak in just a little bit, so we're going to see if we can bring that to you this hour. If not, we'll have updates for you coming up on the news at 4, which is obviously just moments away here on WCNC+. We also have a discussion still underway in Congress, as you could see in the bottom right corner of your screen. We do continue to troubleshoot the update we were getting on the assassination attempt. I keep seeing the feed dropping out. Jeb, do we just want to go to the House for now? Oh, okay. We just got it back. All right, we'll dip back in, folks. Thanks for
Thank you very much. It's my honor to introduce a great Texan, Roger Williams.
1 year ago, as we've talked about, a violent and deranged terrorist set out to change the course of American history by attempting to assassinate President Trump. God spared his life for a reason. Moments after bullets intended to kill him miraculously grazed his ear, President Trump stood in command of the American people to fight, fight, fight. A renewed spirit of American strength and determination was unleashed that day. Now more than ever, we must work to uphold the values that this country is built on as we usher in the golden age of national security, economic prosperity, transparency, and peace through strength. President Trump has put everything on the line. He's put his name, his freedom, his legacy, because he believes in America. He works tirelessly every single day to put the American people first. Let me be clear, political violence, as we've talked about, has no place in our country. Evil will not prevail. We are one nation under God, and let us honor the victims that fateful day by restoring an American legacy that future generations are proud of. Now, in my lifetime, there's 3 things that come to mind as I stood up here. I was one of the last people to shake the hands of John Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963, as a 15-year-old. I shook his hand at 10:46 in the morning. At 12:46, he was assassinated. I remember that like it was yesterday. Rhetoric brought that to be. I also remember the baseball shooting. Some of you may remember that. Many of us, our lives were changed that day because of rhetoric. And I remember that day, everybody wanted to pray for us and offer thanks or offer their prayers. But it wasn't 24 hours later, and Mike, you touched on this. 24 hours later, we were back to where enemies were enemies. And I remember my daughters, 2 daughters, went to the mailbox several months ago now, and opened up 2 letters, each one addressed to them, and had urine, blood, and feces in the envelopes, and it said, "This will be on your father's tombstone." That's tough stuff. It's got to stop. Mike Kelly, Pfluger, and the rest of us believe now is the time to make that happen. So let's keep America great. Let's again pray for President Trump, pray for his safety, and all my colleagues' safety. In God we trust.
Thank you, Mike and August, for having this event today to just remind us all that, you know, despite what happened a year ago to President Trump, and I believe that the Lord spared President Trump's life in that field there in Butler, Pennsylvania, but in spite of that, he remained in the presidential race. He carried on because of his love for our country and the encouragement of the American people. Sadly, we have reached a point in political discourse in this country where President Trump and every politician must have the courage to speak our political beliefs while knowing that at any point our lives can be in danger, just like we saw in Minnesota, just like Congressman Miller mentioned. I too had
was met on an airplane, met by the police because there was a deranged man who was a former San Francisco police officer that was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, looking for me. And I know that every one of us probably have a story similar to that. And I remember Congressman Kelly back in 2010 during the Tea Party election. Passions were high, but we didn't see the hate speech and the political violence that we see today. We have got to stop it on both sides. In fact, I know every one of us up here would always condemn anybody on our side of the aisle that was performing a political, any political violence, any sort of hate speech, because we will not tolerate it from either side of the aisle. And I believe that the left needs to do the same thing, that they need to condemn political violence. They need to condemn hate speech just as much as what we...
Folks, as we are coming up close to the top of the hour and we're about to turn you over to the news at 4, we wanted to check back in with this breaking news that we've been following here this afternoon regarding former York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson. If you'd not heard this news yet, we just got word that he has been arrested. This happened on Sunday after investigators say he was involved in an accident and then left the scene. This happened in Rock Hill over the weekend, according to South Carolina Highway Patrol. This crash was along Airport Road in Rock Hill. According to an arrest warrant, the vehicle went off the roadway, hit a telephone pole and a fence, and as we mentioned, troopers believe that Tolson left the scene, but had been recognized, had been identified as the driver in this investigation. Once again, former York County Sheriff Kevin